The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties accidentally traveled to a parallel world highly similar to the background of the Stargate series, and opened the door to a new world with the credibility and fate of the plot memory. Chapter 0. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the scrolling subtitles on the TV screen, Tang of Qin and Han rubbed his eyes, which were dry from watching TV for a long time, and muttered, "Finally, I've finished scrolling again." During the National Day holiday, Qin, Han, and Tang watched the Stargate series of 15 seasons and 3 related movies at home alone. It has to be said that this science fiction drama series, which started filming in the mid-1990s, is still quite enjoyable. Even the old dramas from nearly 30 years ago only allowed him to watch them at twice the speed, and this is the 4th time he has watched them in over a decade, almost every 3 or 4 years when there is a shortage of dramas. Shaking his hand, there was still half a bottle of beer left in his hand. Qin, Han, and Tang got up and walked towards the TV cabinet, preparing to shut down and sleep. He took a sip of beer and muttered, cursing and muttering. Angsa is such a big fan of the whole scene. They can't forget those damn universal values. Even alien civilizations, who are thousands of years advanced than Earth, have to bow down to their value system. Even good science fiction dramas have to put some shit in them. After staying up late for a long time, Qin, Han, and Tang, who suffered from severe energy exhaustion, accidentally kicked the coffee table leg and stumbled towards the TV cabinet. The beer in his hand collapsed onto the row of the cabinet, losing its center of gravity. At that moment, his subordinates consciously pressed it on top, and a burst of electric sparks flashed. Qin, Han, and Tang felt the darkness before their eyes and lost consciousness. In 1928, Professor Paul Lanford, an archaeologist from the Kingdom of Ansa, discovered a huge circular ring made of unknown metal in the Giza Plateau of North Africa, which was later named the Lanford Ring. Following the plundering nature engraved in the bones of the Ansa people, it was not surprising that it was transported to the Kingdom of Ansa as a cultural relic. In May 1989, in Antarctica, the Chinese Academy of Sciences established a new large-scale scientific research station. In June of the same year, the Chinese military began building a secret base in the center of a desert in western Xinjiang. The vast majority of the base was hidden underground, and the construction difficulty was hellish. On Christmas Eve of the same year, a small earthquake broke out in a city in California, Ansa, triggering a relatively minor riot. A museum in the city became one of the targets of looting during the riot, and a batch of cultural relics, including the Ring of Lanford, were stolen. The police were unable to solve this case, and it eventually became one of many unsolved $0 purchase cases in Ansa. In the 2214 year of the reign of Emperor Yanxia of Huagua, the secret base built by the military 3 years ago was finally officially completed, and a large number of equipment and personnel also entered the base. The official public documents referred to this as Base 116. An analysis report on China was placed on the desk of Director Langley of the Angsa State Intelligence Agency, and sitting in front of him was the submitter of the report, the head of the East Asian branch of the intelligence agency, Bush. According to the analysis of the information transmitted by the agents, this place they call 116 base is likely to be a newly built nuclear arsenal or nuclear testing base in China, or even a combination of both, because the security forces there are too strong. We lost 3 agents and 5 undercover agents, and only received very little information. Bush looked at Langley helplessly and said. Langley flipped through the report with a relaxed expression on his face. Your analysis should be correct. Although we cannot obtain more detailed intelligence, it actually shows a lot. Besides nuclear weapons, what else can make them so cautious? Moreover, Western Xinjiang has always been their main site for nuclear testing. Let's make it a regular reconnaissance target for military satellites, and don't waste our precious human resources here anymore. Chapter 1. Abidos. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the 2214 year of Emperor Yanxia's reign, 1992 in the Gregorian calendar. It was located in the central area of a desert in the western Xinjiang region of China, with a base of 116. The secret room located on the -9th floor underground, with an area of nearly 1,000 square meters and a height of up to 10 meters, makes the entire room appear particularly spacious. Even if there are 4 sand motorcycles parked in the room now, it cannot make the room appear slightly more spacious. There is a T-shaped metal combination platform located in the middle and back of the room. It consists of a horizontal platform that is 5 meters long and 2 meters wide, and a 3-meter wide sloping surface that connects to the ground. On the horizontal platform stands a huge metal ring with a diameter of about 5 meters. 38 icons of the same size but different shapes are engraved on the circular ring, and 8 inverted triangle buckles are evenly distributed on these icons. At this moment, 7 soldiers dressed in desert camouflage suits and fully armed, as well as a bald man over 2 meters tall wearing metal armor, stood in front of the slope. The bald man held a metal scepter in his hand that was about the same height as him. The end of the scepter on the ground was in a flat arc shape, and the side facing upwards resembled a flattened triangular snake head. A low alarm suddenly sounded in the secret room, and then the metal explosion-proof door on one side of the room slowly moved open. A tall and stern officer walked in, with 3 golden stars shining on his golden shoulder badge. It was General Feng Guohui, the commander of Base 116. When Feng Guohui walked up to the slope, 7 soldiers and the bald man raised their hands and saluted in unison, shouting in unison, "Hello, Commander." After paying a military salute, Feng Guohui's sharp gaze swept over the 6 men and 2 women in front of him one by one, and then said solemnly, "Today is your first practical mission since participating in the 116 program for over 2 years, and it is also the day when the 116 program truly began. Most of you may wonder why you still have no knowledge of the details of this mission until now. But I am still unable to provide you with more information at this time, as everything you are about to encounter is already part of this mission. You 8 individuals trained together under the name of TS.1 team for 2 years. Even though Dr. Zhou, Dr. Xia, and Xiao Qin were not originally soldiers, they completed all the training subjects with great perseverance. Today, you will represent the 116 project team and the base, and even more people you don't know, to witness history. Zhu Siming. Arrive. The only officer with the rank of colonel among the 8 stood at attention and responded loudly. You are the captain of TS.1 and bear the heaviest responsibility. Remember what I told you before, and firmly control the focus and progress of the task. Yes. Ensure completion of the task. Alright, time's up. Get ready to leave. Wishing you all a victorious return. After Feng Guohui finished speaking, he paid a military salute again, then turned around cleanly and left, leaving only 8 members of TS.1 in the spacious room. Soon, an alarm sounded in the room, but this time it was no longer a low-pitched sound, but a loud and urgent one. As the alarm sounded, TS.1 Captain Zhu Siming began to quickly assign tasks. Bader, Wang Jinkai, Sui Xiaolei, you 3 and I each drive a desert motorcycle. Song Minyan, you take Qin, Han, Tang, Xia Yiqing, and Zhou Shangyan to prepare for hiking through. Yes. ×4. Start dialing. At this moment, a command voice came from the broadcast in the secret room. As the sound fell, the huge metal ring with a large number of icons floating on it began to rotate. When an icon rotated to the buckle of one of the inverted triangles, the buckle would pop out a small section downwards, stopping the rotating ring and shining an orange-red light. At this moment, 4 people, including Zhu Siming and the bald man wearing metal armor, rushed towards a desert motorcycle and quickly set fire. The remaining 2 men and 2 women, led by a female captain, lined up in front of the metal ring on the slope, ready to depart at any time. Quickly, the metal ring repeated the process of turning and stopping 6 times. After lighting up 7 movable buckles, a huge water wave shockwave appeared in the empty space in the middle of the metal ring, and the shockwave extended nearly 3 meters forward. But strangely enough, this water wave seemed completely unaffected by gravity. Not only did it not scatter on the ground, but it also completely retreated and filled the hollow position of the metal ring. The water wave calmed down in a very short time, becoming a pool of clear water rippling quietly in the middle of the ring. For this magical scene, the TS.1 team members seem to have become accustomed to it, and there is no unexpected feeling in their eyes. Instead, they are full of eager light. Channel established, TS.1 can depart now, good luck. The voice came from the broadcast again. Starting with the sand motorcycle, everyone passes through one by one. Zhu Siming ordered. Immediately, he stepped on the gas pedal and drove his four-wheeled sand motorcycle up the slope, without hesitation rushing into the water surface in the middle of the metal ring. The sand motorcycle did not rush out from the other side of the circular ring through the seemingly thin layer of water, but mysteriously disappeared into the secret room. No one paused for even a second, and then the remaining 3 sand motorcycles rushed into the water in the middle of the circle. Then there were 4 hiking men and women, who followed behind the last sand motorcycle and walked below the metal ring. Song Minyan, who was leading the way, looked at the water surface in front of her, which completely violated the laws of physics. A hint of tension and excitement mixed on her heroic face, and after a brief pause, she lifted her foot and stepped in, then disappeared into the secret room. Qin, Han, and Tang, who followed her, looked at everything in front of her with a complex expression. They thought to themselves, finally, this day has arrived. Then they turned around excitedly, let out a strange cry, opened their arms, and forcefully kicked their legs backwards into the water. It seemed like it was just a blink of an eye, and Qin, Han, and Tang felt as if they had just walked out of a cold storage. Before their eyes was still the sparkling water surface suspended in a metal ring, but it was clearly no longer in the secret room of the base. Looking around, this is a dimly lit stone chamber, with a visual size of no more than 300 square meters and a height of about 10 meters. If it weren't for the lighting effect of the headlights of 4 desert motorcycles, it would have been impossible to see them now. Knowing that there were still 2 people behind, Qin, Han, and Tang turned around and quickly walked down the steps in front of the circular ring. Then, 2 figures emerged from the water surface of the circular ring one by one, namely the other 2 non-military members in TS.1, Xia Yiqing and Zhou Shangyan. A minute later, the motionless water surface disappeared as if losing some kind of support, leaving only a metal ring with empty holes standing quietly in the stone chamber. 30 minutes later, the stone chamber was no longer in its dim state. 4 bright lights were fixed in the 4 corners of the chamber by 3-meter-high brackets, and 4 sand motorcycles and more than a dozen items previously transported in batches were moved to the wall. At this moment, Song Minyan was standing next to 2 animal cages, each containing a small monkey and 2 white mice. It seemed that they were in good condition, looking lively. Captain, the physical signs of the experimental animals are stable. As previously assessed, the environment here is normal and there are no signs of contamination. Song Minyan is a military doctor in TS.1 and also a research expert with dual doctoral degrees in medicine and biology. She has just conducted a physical examination on 3 experimental animals that were transported through a metal ring 3 days ago. Okay, Zhu Siming nodded and asked Sui Xiaolei, who was squatting on the ground fiddling with communication equipment, Xiaolei, have there been any reactions between the radio signal and satellite signal? Sui Xiaolei is a former Marine who is proficient in driving various modes of transportation and mechanical maintenance. He stood up and shook his head. There was no response at all, only our walkie-talkie was fine and can be used normally. It seems there may be an electromagnetic shielding device here, he said upon hearing this. Zhu Siming glanced at Qin, Han, and Tang without saying anything. Instead, he clapped his hands and gathered all the team members together before saying, "The inventory of supplies has also been basically completed. Since communication equipment cannot be relied on, we will first search for the exit, determine our location, and then find other ways to contact the base. Now, we will organize the equipment and set off. So everyone prepared separately, and Zhu Siming called Qin, Han, and Tang aside and asked in a low voice, "Commander Feng has instructed that if there are special circumstances, you can consult your opinion. What are your thoughts on this situation now?" Qin, Han, and Tang looked up at a circular sculpture on the top of the room that looked like a regular decoration, with a strange smile on his face before saying to Zhu Siming, "Not being able to contact the base is not surprising. The communication and positioning devices that were previously transmitted to the base have been unable to find signals, and the staff has guessed this result. As for the exit, it should be easy to find. Although we haven't explored this area carefully, the architectural style of ancient Egypt is quite obvious. If we walk along the direction of the circle without any accidents, we can quickly find the exit." Zhu Siming took a deep look at Qin, Han, and Tang, and instinctively touched the envelope in the pocket of the bulletproof vest lining. He didn't ask any more questions, but saw that everyone was fully assembled. He made a gesture of departure and took the lead in walking towards the direction opposite to the metal ring. The judgment of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties was correct. After walking out of the room where the circular ring was located, they walked along a row of stone pillars in front of them for about 200 meters, and clearly felt that the air was getting fresher. Soon, natural light appeared in front of them. After advancing several tens of meters in the direction of increasing light, a huge exit came into view. Led by Zhu Siming, everyone walked forward quickly. Through the exit, they saw a deep blue sky and a pair of square-pointed steels standing at least 20 meters high outside the exit. Zhu Siming did not rashly pass through the exit, but commanded Barthel, Wang Jinkai, and Sui Xiaolei to explore outside by sticking to the wall of the exit. The endless sand dunes and dry air outside undoubtedly tell them that they are most likely currently in the desert. Sui Xiaolei tried the radio and satellite communication equipment on his body again, but there was no response, and Zhu Siming and Wang Jinkai did not find any signs of human activity outside recently. After confirming that there was no danger, Zhu Siming took the lead and walked out. Outside the gate was a long slope, and at the end of the slope was a pair of towering obelisks. Walking forward along the slope, they found that almost all around were buried by yellow sand. When they walked down the slope and looked back at the gate, a huge pyramid appeared in their view. After calculating the distance they had walked, it turned out that they appeared at the bottom of this pyramid. How could it be a pyramid? There can't be any undiscovered pyramids now, can there? And the scale is so large. Zhou Shangyan exclaimed in surprise. Other people also looked bewildered. After seeing the metal ring capable of space teleportation at the base, all informed personnel couldn't help but guess privately where the ring was connected on the opposite side. The most common speculation in the base is about the seabed or the interior of a large mountain, such as Atlantis in Western legends and Kunlun in Eastern mythology. After all, only such places may have not been discovered by ubiquitous humans and countless satellites. Even before releasing live experimental animals, there were speculations that they were from the Moon and Mars. However, when we saw the little monkeys and mice that had been teleported without any discomfort or changes in their habits, this speculation disappeared. But the desert and pyramids in front of us are a bit outrageous. How could there be a pharaoh's cemetery that has not been discovered by Western colonizers like locusts? For them, there are all treasures inside. And the well-preserved large pyramid in front of them is obviously much better than those they see in books and TV. How could the local government not have conducted protective research or commercial development? No, there must be someone at the base who knows about the situation here. The 4 sand motorcycles are a bit out of place among the crowd of supplies, it can't be a coincidence. Zhu Siming suddenly realized something unusual. Not only did Zhu Siming think of this, TS.1 was full of elites from all aspects. After a brief shock, everyone quickly remembered this obvious anomaly. However, as the captain, Zhu Siming had some personal conversations with the base commander Feng Guohui before departure, which made him immediately look for Qin, Han, and Tang's figure after realizing the problem. Sweeping around, it was discovered that the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties did not stop near the slope at all. Instead, they ran straight to a sand dune further away, staring intently at the pyramid. I saw Qin, Han, and Tang suddenly jump up with excitement, waving his right hand forcefully into the air. When he landed, he might have tilted his foot and fell to the ground due to the sand, but he laughed recklessly. Not only Zhu Siming, but also others noticed something was wrong with the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. As he ran the farthest alone, they didn't know what had happened to him. They thought something had happened, so they all ran towards him. Qin, Han, Tang, what's your situation? Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Song Minyan crouched in front of him, holding his shoulders with both hands and asked softly. At this moment, everyone else also ran over and nervously watched from the side. They were now carrying out tasks in a completely unfamiliar environment, and if someone suddenly fell ill, things were likely to be very troublesome. If it is due to personal health reasons, it is easy to say, but they have undergone strict physical examinations before departure, and the possibility of sudden illness is very small. Therefore, the remaining situation, regardless of which one, is not a good thing. Qin, Han, and Tang did not answer Song Minyan's question. Instead, they reached out to the sky behind them and said with a crazy smile. I'm fine, I'm just happy. Finally, on this day, everything is true. Stargate, I'm here. We've witnessed history. Everyone instinctively turned around to look in the direction pointed out by the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. In the next second, they seemed to be all petrified, staring blankly at the sky behind the pyramid, speechless for a long time. The blue sky has no clouds, but there are 3 planets of different sizes hanging from far to near. The farthest or smallest one is currently located in the upper left corner of the pyramid and looks the same size as the moon when it is full moon on Earth. On the right side of the pyramid, behind the waistline, lies another planet that appears slightly larger, visibly closer. The third planet is located at the bottom left of the pyramid, and it should be very close to the planet where TS.1 is located. At this time, about 1/5 of the planet is below the horizon, and the huge volume and extremely close distance bring a strong visual impact. This is definitely not Earth. This is the common idea among all members of TS.1 at this moment. Oh, no, except for Qin, Han, and Tang, who also knows that this is the closest planet to Earth with an active Stargate, known as Abidos. Even though the humans of this world have not yet named it, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties have decided that in order to commemorate their original world, this is the Abidos star. How could there be 3 moons in the sky? Where are we? Are we no longer on Earth? Bartle stuttered as he was only shocked and self-doubting, completely unaware that anyone would answer him. But the Qin, Han, and Tang travelers were suppressed by coercion for 5 years. At this moment, a big stone fell on his heart, and coupled with his natural tendency to jump out, he couldn't help but listen to Bartel's self-talk and without hesitation, took on the conversation. Of course, this is not Earth, but the planet Abidos, but whether those 3 in the sky are the moon or whether this is one of the moons is just a matter of 2. Upon hearing this resolute answer, everyone suddenly turned their heads to look at Qin, Han, and Tang sitting on the ground, realizing that he was actually the only one in the team who understood. Zhu Siming also remembered the instructions from the commander before departure, but he didn't understand that the scene before him was the disruptive discovery that allowed him to open the top-secret letter. As a Special Forces King and top frontline operations commander, Zhu Siming quickly adjusted his mindset and began assigning tasks, while also using this to bring the team members back to normal. Batel, Kaizi, and Xiaolei are responsible for vigilance, while Dr. Xia and Dr. Zhou are responsible for specimen collection. As long as anything can be found within a radius of 100 meters, do not let go, whether it is insects or vegetation. If not, even sand and soil should be collected. Song Minyan, give the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties an examination to see if there are any external injuries. Qin, Han, and Tang shook their heads and sat up from the ground. I'm really fine, I just didn't stand firm and fell, they said. That's not enough. Song Minyan executes the order. Zhu Siming ignored Qin, Han, and Tang's rebuttal. Everyone will return to the departure camp in 10 minutes. Song Minyan is not like a civilian team member like Qin, Han, and Tang. Her first identity is a soldier, and she obeys orders more than anything else. So she pushed him back to the ground and took out medical equipment to start checking. The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties have been afraid of doctors since childhood, and when faced with Song Minyan, a female military doctor, they dare not say a word, so they have to accept the examination honestly. Chapter 2. Stargate Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. 20 minutes later, TS.1 returned to the departure camp, which was the room in the pyramid where the metal rings were stored. 8 people sat on the ground in a circle, with Zhu Siming and Qin, Han, and Tang sitting one on the left and one on the right. On Zhu Siming's left side, Bader, Wang Jinkai, and Sui Xiaolei sat in sequence, while on the right side of Qin, Han, and Tang were Song Minyan, Xia Yiqing, and Zhou Shangyan. Bader is the bald man wearing metal armor and holding a metal scepter. His name suggests he is a Mongolian, but his abilities are perfectly worthy of that name. Before joining the Stargate program, Batel was a Special Forces soldier. With a height of 2 meters, he not only had close combat skills, but also was proficient in various weapons. He was also a senior bomb expert, and even in elite Special Forces squadrons, he was extremely outstanding. Beside Butler, who was playing with a tactical dagger, was Wang Jinkai, an ace scout. Despite his plain appearance and average physique, he was skilled in street battles, jungle battles, and stealth reconnaissance. As for Sui Xiaolei, he is the beauty symbol of his male counterparts in the TS.1. His dignified and well-proportioned appearance on the road is likely to be mistaken for the idol of the entertainment industry, but in reality, he is a Marine Corps member who is proficient in driving various modes of transportation and mechanical maintenance. Sitting next to Qin, Han, and Tang was his most feared military doctor, Song Minyan. She had short, ear-length hair, slender fingers, and a calm demeanor. Not only was she a captain, but she also had a dual doctorate in medicine and biology. To the right of Song Minyan sat a mature and intellectual beauty, Xia Yiqing, a PhD in mathematics and physics. Although she was wearing camouflage clothes, her hair was short of her shoulders, and her skin was slightly rough due to military training in the past 2 years, it was still difficult to conceal her scholarly aura. The last guy who looked polite but was actually gloomy and promiscuous was Zhou Shangyan, a dual PhD in computer and industrial engineering. His expertise in computer science was one of the important reasons why he was selected for TS.1. Currently, compared to more than a decade later, talent in this field is still relatively scarce in China. Zhu Siming looked at the expressions of the team members, without any negative emotions. What caught his eye was a thirst for knowledge and excitement. He breathed a little relief in his heart, at least his heart was still strong, and the team was still easy to lead. Take out the black envelope handed to Feng Guohui by Feng Guohui before departure, which is marked as top secret, with 2 seals and ink on the seal. Zhu Siming's thoughts drifted back to the last conversation with Commander Feng at the base before departure. This envelope contains an explanation of the true purpose of the 116 plan. In the event of any abnormal phenomena beyond the norm, as well as death, disappearance, or other inability to communicate with you normally during the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, you can open it and distribute it to all team members. Zhu Siming immediately instinctively looked at Qin, Han, and Tang standing beside him. That's right, the unlucky child was also present at the time. The kid was already unhappy at the time. I said, Commander, could you expect me to do something good? Why don't I leave? You and Mr. Zhu have agreed separately. Feng Guohui snorted coldly and said, so what do you think? I was supposed to tell you, but when you go over, be careful. If it's really what you know, if anything goes wrong, you can only rely on you to bring them back. Don't be such a fool to me. Alright, you can get out of here. You can stay where it's cool. The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were so trained that they dared not speak and rolled their big eyes before decisively running away. Thinking of this, Zhu Siming glanced at the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. At that time, he knew that this usually lazy and rogue guy was not easy, but now it seems that he is still underestimated. After the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties left, Commander Feng truly mentioned the purpose of talking to him alone. In fact, the contents of this envelope can be opened directly after you send them over. However, because the matters involved are very complex and the leaders have many concerns, we can only arrange them this way. After arriving there, you should listen to Qin, Han, and Tang's opinions on the task. He is the person who is most familiar with the entire plan. The last thing you must remember is that whenever there is a glimmer of possibility, you must spare no effort to ensure the safety of Qin, Han, and Tang and send them back. Remember, you will spare no expense. Zhu Siming instantly grasped the key point. The commander said that Qin, Han, and Tang were the most familiar with the entire plan, not the most familiar with this mission. Although he couldn't believe it, if he didn't understand correctly, Commander Feng was telling himself that Qin, Han, and Tang were the core figures of the 116 plan. Although he didn't understand why it was necessary to send him to participate in such a mission with obvious doubts and great uncertainty since the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were so important, these 6 words at all costs made him understand what the true purpose of this mission was for him. Except for Zhu Siming and Qin Han Tang, the other TS.1 team members, although they felt that the current situation was unexpected and had a lot of doubts in their hearts, were all carefully selected talented players. Before joining the 116 base, especially before the departure of this mission, they were told more than once about the danger of the mission, and death and disappearance would be a high probability event, so their mentality was quite stable. Zhu Siming raised the envelope in his hand and said, "This is the top secret document that Commander Feng gave me before departure. The situation outside just now meets the conditions for opening it. Now I will open it and pass it on one by one." Under normal circumstances, Zhu Siming does not need to say these words, but after all, he is no longer on Earth. As a commander, he will inevitably make adjustments in some details. Tearing open the seal ink, there was only a thin piece of paper inside the envelope, with not many words. Zhu Siming read all the content in less than half a minute. Overview of the Stargate program. The Stargate project was officially launched in June 2211 by Emperor Zhuang, with the project code 116. According to top secret intelligence analysis, the Stargate is a device built by a higher civilization for long-distance interstellar transmission. Its authenticity has been preliminarily tested and verified, so it is decided to rely on it to carry out the Stargate project. The main task of this plan is to use the Stargate for extraterrestrial exploration, in order to promote China's development in various aspects such as technology, diplomacy, and resources. The objectives of this mission are: 1. Determine the destination connected to the interstellar gate. 2. Search for the coordinates of the Earth's spherical gate and return to the gate base. After reading it, Zhu Siming handed the letter to others for circulation. Soon everyone passed it over, and in the end, the letter fell into the hands of Qin, Han, and Tang. The mood of Qin, Han, and Tang is not calm now. Compared to other TS.1 players who have just learned the truth, he has not been as relaxed as usual in recent years. 5 years ago, when he woke up again after falling and electrocuted at home, he found himself lying in his old house more than 30 years ago, and his body had returned to its youthful state when he was still in college. As an old bookworm wandering around the world of online literature for years, after a brief shock, I quickly realized that I had traveled through time, but for a moment I couldn't figure out whether it was soul-piercing or body-piercing. After several days of careful probing and verification, he was certain that his soul had penetrated into a parallel space-time. In this world, there is almost no difference from the original world, from being close to one's own relatives and friends to being far away in major historical processes, except for the fact that China began using a calendar called the Yanxia calendar after its founding. The year of Qin, Han, and Tang Chuanyue was the 2210th year of the reign of Emperor Yanxia, but it was precisely this unique difference that made him mutter. There is no reason to travel on your own just to experience a brand new calendar, isn't that just wearing loneliness? As a seasoned online reader, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties began to search for other differences between the two worlds. Unfortunately, he traveled back to a time when there were no information collection tools such as the internet and mobile phones. After trying and exploring, he never made any major discoveries, so the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties chose to have a big idea. According to the normal routine, it is highly likely that his time travel is related to his experience at that time, so the Stargate film and television series he was watching before his time travel became his exploration direction. But without the blessing of the internet, it's really hard to find some information. Fortunately, his parents are both diplomats and are currently stationed in an embassy in a country in the Middle East. After a lot of hard work, Qin, Han and Tang finally took advantage of the sophomore summer vacation that just started to run to Egypt, and also fooled his mother to be his interpreter. When he found the record of Professor Paul Landford discovering the Ring of Landford in Egypt in 1928 in the library of Cairo University, he finally confirmed that he had come to the world of the Stargate. As a skilled assassin in the group of travelers, in the next 6 months, Qin, Han, and Tang, with their timid and courageous spirit of starving to death, did not choose the creepy and sneaky development route. Instead, they desperately created a script for themselves to invade and destroy the Earth, leading to their journey back to modern times. They risked being beaten by their father before being sent to a mental hospital. In the end, they relied on accurate predictions of several historical events to enter the vision of the higher-ups. Under his influence, the military, under the pretext of constructing the Antarctic Scientific Research Station of the Academy of Sciences, went to great lengths to excavate the bodies of Stargate and 2 parasitic warriors of Goa Uld, Jaffa, from the deep snow near McMurdo Bay in Antarctica. At this point, the post-apocalyptic script directed and performed by Qin, Han, and Tang has finally been preliminarily recognized, and at least the existence of aliens has been confirmed. As a result, China officially launched the Stargate project with the code name 116, and Qin, Han, and Tang naturally became a core member of this project. In order to completely thwart the Interstellar Gate plan in the country of Angsa, with the strong push of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, the intelligence department of China mobilized its forces in the country of Angsa and finally found the trace of the Stargate. It turned out that in the year after the end of World War II, a research institution accidentally activated a Stargate and caused physics professor Ernest Litfield to mysteriously disappear. All related information was sealed by the government, while the Ring of Landford was deliberately kept separate from experimental data. In the following 20 years, due to various factors such as the outbreak of the Cold War, presidential changes, and political party conflicts, the Landford Ring traveled between multiple research institutions and museums. When intelligence agencies found it, it was being preserved as an ancient Egyptian artifact in a museum in California. At this time, the discovered Stargates in Antarctica had already arrived in China. Tang Li of the Qin and Han dynasties used the resonance effect of 2 Stargates on the same planet to develop a plan to completely destroy the possibility of restarting the Stargates in Angsa. During the Christmas Eve of that year, Qin, Han, and Tang personally entered the coordinates of the Abidos star and activated the Stargate without any surprise or danger, further confirming the absurd script he had previously created. At the same time, the well-prepared Chinese intelligence agency also successfully purchased the second Stargate for 0 yuan in the country of Angsa, using the small earthquake triggered by the activation of the Stargate, and then spent some effort to transport it back to China. It has been proven that once the bottom line is lowered and thrown away, the path is easily widened. At this point, the initial plot of Xingmen, known to the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, completely took a different direction, forcing him to start examining the changes he had brought to this parallel world. The post-apocalyptic travel script created by the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties in order to connect the heavens and earth was supported to some extent by the important prophecies he provided, but his parents did not mention a word about it to the public before meeting with the final decision-maker. After the discovery of the Stargate in Antarctica, out of various considerations, the top decision-makers unexpectedly did not delve deeper into the questionable script of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. The leaders have confined this matter to a very small range, with no more than 5 true informants except for the Qin, Han, and Tang families of 3. In this context, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were assigned the roles of an intelligence analyst and language expert at the Xingmen base and TS.1. For such seemingly perfunctory arrangements, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties sometimes even maliciously speculated whether they were using him for fishing. But let alone the unreliable identity of an intelligence analyst, the identity of a language expert in the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties is not completely unfounded. His parents are both diplomats, so his language talent is naturally not low. Thanks to their genetic influence, he still has some language talent. He attended a foreign language university in college, majoring in French and Russian in addition to English as a compulsory subject. Later, he also self-taught Japanese to study island country sitcoms. Since the confirmation of arriving at the Stargate world after crossing the border, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties did not hesitate to introduce linguistics from North Africa and the Middle East. Although he was not foolish enough to completely bring the storyline of the Stargate into this world, anyway, the strong men that Apophis captured back then mostly came from ancient Egypt. Studying the relevant languages is definitely not bad for future explorations. After all, the armor of language experts cannot be shed. Zhu Siming retrieved the confidential document from the hands of Qin, Han, and Tang, took out a lighter, burned it along with the envelope, and then said to him, "You are the intelligence analyst in the team, and you should be the only one who knows the ins and outs of this plan from the beginning, so the task of solving our doubts is entrusted to you." Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were not the kind of personality who liked someone to keep secrets. Otherwise, they wouldn't have chosen to use extreme methods such as self-disclosure to stir up the Interstellar Gate plan. Now that the time is ripe, sharing knowledge about the Interstellar Gate is naturally desirable. Everyone has traveled to other planets through the Stargate, so most of the information related to the Stargate is open to you. If we can still return to the Stargate base in full, you can go to the base database and take a look. Now I will just briefly explain the background of the Stargate plan, mainly to give everyone a basic understanding of the Stargate. In the year 2150 of Emperor Ancestor's reign, Professor Paul Lanford of the Kingdom of Ansa discovered a huge circular ring made of unknown metal on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. Later, it was named the Lanford Ring, and according to the urine nature of the Ansa people, it was not surprising that it was transported to the Kingdom of Ansa as a cultural relic. In 2213, when China was building a new Antarctic scientific research station, something completely impossible to appear there was discovered deep in the snow layer. We dug out another ring of Lanford and the equipment connected to it there. At the same time, 2 human corpses wearing metal armor were also discovered. After autopsy, it was found that although the appearance of the 2 corpses was similar to that of humans, their internal organs' physiological structures were vastly different from those of humans, and their genes were also inconsistent with any known species on Earth. In addition, there is a snake-like creature in the abdominal cavity of the corpse that has never appeared before. After testing, they are not undigested animal remains after human consumption, but rather some kind of symbiotic organism. Finally, after analyzing the age of the body and nearby ice, it was found that its formation occurred between 600 and 800 years ago. Speaking of the Ring of Lanford, it was named after the discoverer, but I would rather call it the Stargate. The Stargate, forget it, I'm still more accustomed to abbreviating it. The Stargate should have been built by a civilization with highly developed technology. Its purpose is to establish a stable spatial wormhole between two stargates through some technology that we still cannot understand, in order to achieve fast and non-destructive material transfer between two distant galaxies, including any form of life. As for the operation principle of the Stargate, it is speculated that the material may be decomposed into atoms or even smaller particles at one end of the Stargate, and then restored and reassembled intact at the other end of the Stargate. Of course, this is just speculation, and the true principle can only be studied slowly by scientists, which is probably a long process. And the task we have set for the Stargate base is to explore the interstellar space in the form of an exploration team through the Stargate, just like today. We have learned how to use the Stargate to travel from Earth to other planets, and the biggest problem now is how to return to Earth from outer space. This is also the primary purpose of our mission this time, and it is also our biggest crisis, because if we cannot find a way back, we will have to die here alone. Chapter 3. The Past of Xingmen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although Qin, Han, and Tang did not elaborate on many details, it was already a huge amount of information for other TS.1 team members who had just come into contact with the truth about the Stargate plan. Zhu Siming didn't care about anything else for now. If Commander Feng instructed him alone, he would directly focus his attention on this task. What does it mean that we may not be able to return? Didn't the previous mission briefing say that if we don't actively contact the base will activate the Stargate every 12 hours to contact us? As long as we stay here on time, we can't return to the base. Qin Han Tang shook his head and said, the base will contact us on time, that's right, but the problem is that the wormhole generated when activating the Stargate is unidirectional. That is to say, the Stargate dialed out from Earth can only transmit material from Earth to the opposite Stargate, and the opposite Stargate cannot transmit material back through this wormhole at this time. We don't know if all wormholes are unidirectional, but at least the wormholes generated by the Stargate are like this. Perhaps it was intentionally set up like this when building the Stargate. It's actually easy to understand. If the wormhole is a two-way teleportation, then if both sides are conducting material teleportation simultaneously, mutual interference may occur, leading to teleportation failure or other accidents. Imagine if you were to teleport a small dog from both sides at the same time, and the result would be that one side of the dog had 6 legs and the other side only had 2 legs, then the scene. Everyone instinctively shuddered, thinking that a one-way wormhole was the wise choice. So if we want to return to the base, we must dial the Stargate connecting to Earth from here, otherwise we will only be trapped on this planet. That's not right. Didn't we be able to transmit images and sound back from here when the base was transmitting detectors before? And how can we confirm that this wormhole is unidirectional? Have we done experiments before? Sui Xiaolei thought of the situation when he participated in the Stargate experiment at the base before. Qin, Han, and Tang sighed and said, actually, based on the intelligence we have, we knew from the beginning that the wormhole of the Stargate is unidirectional, but we still tested it when we first activated the Stargate. At that time, 2 probes were teleported from Earth and one of them was manipulated to return to the Stargate. However, the wormhole disappeared automatically, and neither side of the Stargate was able to wait for anything to come out of the wormhole. I guess it was probably because the Stargate had taken a kickback. Of course, this information was provided by the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, but he can't say it clearly now. He is very reluctant and can only complain about roast. As for the possibility of receiving images and sound through the Stargate wormhole, we don't know the reason, but we speculate that there are 2 maximum possibilities. One reason is that due to the inherent characteristics of electromagnetic signals, they are different from general substances. They are microscopic particles themselves, and during transmission, they may not need to undergo decomposition and recombination like other substances, so they can undergo bidirectional transmission. Another reason is the civilization that built the Stargate. Bah! It's so awkward, let's call it the Ancient Clan. This is the name given in official records. So, we speculate that the Ancient Clan itself had a need for long-distance communication through the Stargate, so this feature was added during the construction of the Stargate. Due to the huge gap in technological level, we have no knowledge of the structure and principles of Stargates except for knowing how to use them, so we can only guess blindly. Zhu Siming breathed a slight sigh of relief. Although he had not fully understood the details of the operation of the Stargate, he at least knew that they were not completely isolated and helpless now. Until he found a way to return to Earth from here, the base could not send people over again, but at least there should be no problem with material support. At this moment, Zhou Shangyan pointed to the Stargate and said, although the wormhole of the Stargate is one way, isn't there also a Stargate here? Since the equipment is the same, it shouldn't be difficult to connect to the Stargate of the base, right? Qin, Han, and Tang spread their hands and said helplessly, if only it could be so simple. Connecting two Stargates is like making a phone call, we need to know each other's number to dial. We know the number of this Stargate on Earth's side, but we don't know the number to call back from here to Earth yet. Sleeping slot. Is it so nonsense? So, how do we know the number here? Is there no other number? Zhou Shangyan widened his eyes. During the Qin and Han dynasties, Tang Dun remained speechless, feeling extremely ashamed and dissatisfied with his identity as a wanderer. Why was Mao's configuration so shabby? According to the normal operation in the online article, the protagonist of the time traveler should receive some unconventional treatment, but it seems that he has offended the big shots of the Time and Space Management Bureau, and the treatment is as poor as a horse. When he first crossed over, he went through several tests and found that the system was not functioning properly, nor did he receive any special functions. The only benefit seemed to be that his memory of the plot of the Stargate series of movies and TV dramas had been strengthened to a certain extent, and it was not the kind of unforgettable memory that goes against the sky. Negative review. But even this level of buff is actually built on the foundation of my 4 rounds of Stargate dramas. The memory of the plot that he didn't watch at double speed while watching the drama will be clearer. If he used double speed, it would be over, because the double speed he used actually directly affects the clarity of his memory. This is really off the charts. Originally, complete Stargate coordinates were rarely seen in Stargate dramas, and this is a science fiction drama rather than a suspense drama. Who would a normal person pay attention to these details when chasing a drama? Fortunately, the plot of the Abidos star is the pioneering work of the Stargate series. When watching this movie, Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties never used double speed, and the Stargate coordinates appeared multiple times in the plot. Even so, under normal circumstances, he is unlikely to remember the complete coordinates. Fortunately, the welfare of the passer is not awesome, but not completely absent, which enables him to activate the Stargate. But the upper limit of his cheating attributes has come to an end. Even if he racked his brains, he couldn't remember the second complete Stargate coordinate. The rest were either incomplete, or his memory was blurry, completely useless. Oh, no, he still remembers the gate coordinates of Atlantis, but now he doesn't have much use for eggs. Firstly, there is not enough energy provided by ZPM, zero-point energy module, to open the wormhole, and secondly, it has now changed the course of most events in the world that were originally related to Stargates. These changes are not a big problem when connecting the gates of the Milky Way galaxy, but Atlantis City on the other side of the Pegasus galaxy will experience fatal bugs as a result. Before finding a solution, he had no intention of going to Atlantis City. Isn't he fragrant to live well? Moreover, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties also realized an important issue, which is that the parallel world he currently lives in is unlikely to be completely consistent with the world in the Stargate drama series. Let's take the language of aliens in movies and TV shows as an example. He can understand that most alien civilizations in the series are speaking English, and it's just a movie. The crew cannot invent and create an alien language for the sake of rationality, let alone the appearance of so many alien races in the Stargate series. But what about the real world? He doesn't think there is a complete language barrier between aliens and Earthlings. Even though the Lord of Goa'uld, the sun god Ra, plundered a large number of black laborers from ancient Earth, they were completely isolated from Earth for nearly 10,000 years. Not to mention language, there should be some differences in appearance, which is a normal phenomenon. Therefore, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties believed that in most cases, objective information such as the coordinates of stargates and the natural environment of planets in the plot could be appropriately relied upon. However, the variables related to intelligent life forms were too large, and before experiencing them firsthand, they could only be considered as stories. However, compared to the original timeline of the Angsa Kingdom Stargate plan, having the formidable Hua Kingdom Stargate base of Qin, Han, and Tang started much faster. Qin Hua hesitated for a moment and decided whether to scan the blind again. The ancient people should have established a huge network of stargates in the Milky Way. In order to accurately locate them, each stargate has its fixed coordinates, and this coordinate system is constructed through star maps. Everyone also stayed at the Stargate base for a period of time and participated in all the experiments to activate the Stargate. Although they didn't know the true situation of the Stargate at that time, they should not be unfamiliar with it. Qin, Han, and Tang pointed to the Stargate behind them and said, "You see this thing the most. There are 38 different symbols on it, which are actually some constellation patterns and also the dial coordinates of the Stargate." After speaking, he moved his hand to the right front of the Stargate and pointed to something similar to a large old-fashioned telephone dial. You probably haven't seen this much before. It's installed in the control room above the Stargate's secret room at the base, which has explosion-proof steel plates and bulletproof glass curtain walls. It's the dial control console of the Stargate, and together with the Stargate, it's the complete Stargate. Zhu Siming and others turned their attention to the dial-up console, which appeared to be made of a certain metal similar to a Stargate. It was connected to the ground by a cylindrical base, and in the middle was a large orange-red hemispherical button. Around this button were two circles of buttons with star map coordinates engraved on them. There are 38 Stargate coordinate buttons on the console, which are consistent with the star map coordinates on the Stargate. To connect to another Stargate in the vast universe is like making a phone call to find the correct number, which is a combination of those buttons on the console. Qin, Han, and Tang picked up a square water cup beside them and gestured, assuming this cup is a region in the universe. Then he dashed his hand in the cup and said, "Assuming a certain Stargate is in this area, if you want to locate it in this three-dimensional space, a relatively accurate method requires at least 6 coordinates as a reference." Qin, Han, and Tang nodded around the 4 sides of the water cup, as well as the top and bottom sides. He pointed to himself and said, "If you want to start from me now and go to the Stargate in the pen holder, you still need a starting coordinate. Therefore, to travel from Earth to any Stargate, 6 destination coordinates and 1 departure coordinate need to be entered." Speaking of this, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties suddenly shook their minds and said, The 6+1 configuration is such a familiar combination, gone. Isn't this really just a 2-color ball selection? He suddenly felt as if he had discovered some strange secret, shook his head quickly to dispel these chaotic thoughts, and continued his Stargate literacy course. When we press a button on the dial-up console, the corresponding icon on the Stargate will be activated. After entering the 7th button, pressing the hemispherical button in the middle of the console will activate the wormhole between the 2 Stargates. Of course, this is the case where the coordinates of the Stargate are correct, because the order of inputting the same set of coordinates is different, and their pointing positions are also different. If the coordinates are incorrect, the Stargate will not react, and the previously activated coordinates will also be restored. At this point, Xia Yiqing raised a question: isn't that to say that as long as we know which icon represents Earth, and then randomly select 6 button combinations to try, we can find a large number of Stargates in extraterrestrial galaxies? Qin, Han, and Tang nodded and said, in theory, that's right, but you also know how low the probability is. The combination of 38 out of 7 arrangements is too large, and activating Stargates also requires a huge amount of energy. Even trying the wrong Stargate coordinates requires energy output, so the best way is to have ready-made Stargate coordinates. However, currently we only have one usable Stargate coordinate on hand, which is the one in front of us. Sui Xiaolei's handsome face was almost squeezed into bitter gourds upon hearing this. So how do we find the coordinates of the Stargate back to Earth? Is it really difficult? Do we really need to try each one? Qin, Han, and Tang waved their hands and said, that's not necessary. If this method is needed to find the coordinates of returning to Earth, Commander Feng will definitely not approve this mission. There is intelligence indicating that there is a coordinate for returning to Earth in a relic on the planet Abidos, and our primary task is to locate it. Seeing everyone looking at him with a bewildered expression, Qin, Han, and Tang suddenly realized, oh, I forgot to say, Abidos is the name of this planet. Song Minyan gave him a displeased look and said, is that what we're concerned about? Where did you get so much intelligence? Is it reliable? During the Qin and Han dynasties, Tang Xian was afraid that he might have been too convinced of the plot of his past life and accidentally overturned and got slapped in the face. I also have information about local indigenous residents, such as the tribal leader having a beautiful daughter. Unfortunately, he could only think in his heart, but his words were a different set of rhetoric. The intelligence source is about to ask Commander Feng. Anyway, those sand motorcycles definitely didn't ask us to drive over for no reason. At this moment, Xia Yiqing finally couldn't help but ask the most confusing question to her. Why is the natural environment of air, gravity, and temperature on this planet no different from Earth? For so many years, the scientific community has not found even a planet similar to Earth suitable for human habitation in the vast universe, and there are not even a few planets suitable for the birth of life. The only place where the Stargate can currently be connected is actually a planet that is almost identical to the Earth's environment. I can't believe this is a coincidence. Qin, Han, and Tang smiled and said, of course this is not a coincidence. Strictly speaking, any place with a Stargate is highly likely to have a similar natural environment and is suitable for human survival. The Milky Way has over 100 billion planetary systems, and I don't believe there are no planets with a similar environment to Earth under such a large population. After all, according to the Big Bang Theory, the entire universe originated from a singularity, and it's unreasonable that similar celestial bodies cannot be produced under the same physical laws. As I mentioned earlier, it is speculated that the ancient humans have built a massive Stargate network in the Milky Way galaxy. Assuming we are the technologically advanced ancient humans, we plan to establish fixed bases on other planets. As long as conditions permit, will we prioritize choosing planets that are similar to our own home planet environment or those that can be transformed into home planets through technological means. So, does having a Stargate on Earth mean that as a member of the Stargate network, the Earth's environment is already selected or modified? And so on, is it natural for the environment of Abidos, which has a Stargate, to be similar to Earth? Based on this speculation, combined with the 2 suspected extraterrestrial corpses discovered together with the Stargate, we believe that even if they do not come from Abidos, there is a high probability that intelligent life, and even civilized races, will exist on this planet. At this moment, Barthel raised the metal scepter placed by his hand and looked at Tang, the Qin and Han dynasties, and asked in a muffled voice. I only received this armor and this weapon in the past month, and their appearance and function are completely different from those I have been in contact with before. Old Tang, when you said you were digging up extraterrestrial corpses in Antarctica, they weren't just imitations of extraterrestrial armor and weapons, were they? Qin, Han, and Tang patted their heads and said regretfully, damn it, how could you forget such an important matter? Then he looked at Bartle with envy on his face and said, at that time, the armor materials worn by those 2 aliens were unknown. Anyway, they were not made of materials on Earth. After comparison, it was found that they were made of the same metal as the one that made the Stargate. We called them Nakuda. After testing, the metal performance of Nakuda is extremely amazing, and those two sets of armor have extremely strong bulletproof and shockproof effects, making them simply weapons for individual combat. At that time, a total of 2 sets of armor and weapons were discovered, one of which was sent to the Research Institute, and the other was left at the Stargate base. Butler, this set of equipment on your body is not a replica, but a genuine imported genuine product. Does it feel particularly stylish? Song Minyan and Xia Yiqing were fine, but the other male creatures couldn't resist this temptation. They all looked at Batel with incorrect eyes. If he were in the base, he would probably have rushed up and knocked him down and stripped him naked. Batel touched his bald head and laughed, I just said something's wrong. When wearing this equipment, training is done separately, and the difference between this weapon and the unit is too big. It's not a complete system. Sui Xiaolei rushed to Bartel's side and began to touch it directly, praising the texture of the armor. Good guy, look at the materials used. Full body armor. It probably weighs over 100 pounds, right? No, it's only about 50 pounds, it just looks heavy, Bartel said honestly. Qin, Han, and Tang added, the metal used in Xingmen is really magical, with high strength and light weight. Unfortunately, there are no minerals on Earth. At this moment, Wang Jinkai stared at the metal scepter in Bartel's hand and said, this is an alien weapon. How is it used? This is an energy weapon that does not require ammunition to be filled, but relies on an energy crystal inside to provide energy. When we go out later, Bartel can demonstrate it. In case we encounter it in the future, it will give everyone a sense of security. Chapter 4. Indigenous Peoples. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Zhu Siming looked at the time and found that there were nearly 10 hours left until the next activation of the Stargate at the base. Due to the uncertainty of the first Stargate crossing, both the mission briefing before departure and the description of the mission objectives in the previously unsealed confidential documents are extremely concise, summarized in just 4 words. Exploration and return. After confirming that you are on another planet, the next challenge is how to return. Alright, we've almost finished our rest. If we don't want to spend our whole life here gnawing on sand, we need to hurry up and search for the coordinates of the return Stargate to Earth. Xiao Qin, do you think there is a clear direction for the coordinates of the Earth's spherical Stargate in the nearby ruins? The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties had already gone through the plot of their past lives countless times. Unfortunately, they watched science fiction films rather than documentaries, and it was difficult to directly copy the answers to such details. However, it was not completely without clues, and they just had to go through the process of Stargate knowledge literacy again. As you can see, this Stargate is placed in the pyramid, indicating that Abidos must have a wise race and must have some connection with us Earthlings. I happen to have intelligence related to this, so let me share it with everyone first. Qin, Han, and Tang looked at the other people with a look of wanting to cut themselves off, their voices getting quieter and quieter, and in the end, only a smirk remained. TS.1 is filled with human sperm, and he doesn't even understand that he must have hidden secrets. He also knows that his way of pretending to be confused with clarity is not worth beating. But what can he do? Can't we just self-destruct and say we're a time traveler, right? Fortunately, there is still a place to shake the pan. So, I didn't mean to hide anything, it's just that you all understand the confidentiality regulations. Some things won't be easy to say later, so don't worry about these details, big brothers and sisters. Zhu Siming coughed and said, we are still carrying out the mission. The intelligence that Xiao Qin has is the core of this mission. Everyone should bear with someone and wait until we return to the base to clean up. Qin, Han, and Tang looked at Zhu Siming speechlessly. I didn't expect you to be such a captain. Fortunately, the captain's authority remained strong, and everyone was well advised to temporarily give up eye contact. Qin, Han, and Tang dared not speak any further, so they quickly continued. Based on the equipment of 2 aliens discovered in Antarctica, their identities may be priests of a certain religion or soldiers of a certain faction. But no matter which one it is, its identity will not be too low, which is why Bartle needs to equip himself with this set of armor and weapons. If he encounters local indigenous residents here, he can at least have a temporary identity that can be fooled. Batel should have mastered the use of armor and scepter weapons proficiently. If we encounter local indigenous people in the future, you should first put on the helmet of the armor and see the other person's reaction. Zhou Shangyan exclaimed in surprise, "Do you still have a helmet? Where did you put it?" "Bartle, come and take a look quickly." Batel smiled silently, his left hand quietly clenched, accompanied by a few metallic frictions. Suddenly, the armor around his neck extended upwards, completely wrapping his head in the blink of an eye. On the other hand, a metal snake head appeared at the head of the armor, and its eyes emitted a piercing red light. This sudden change startled everyone, except for Qin Guobi. "Damn it! What kind of ghost is this? It's so creepy, isn't it?" Zhou Shangyan exclaimed with a fragrant breath. Song Minyan patted her heart and said, "This image doesn't really look like a good person." Sui Xiaolei couldn't help but complain, "No, is he serious about the aliens he dug up?" At this moment, Bartle hummed from his helmet and said, "It's okay not to wear this armor, as long as it really makes people feel uncomfortable." Accompanied by 2 metallic friction sounds again, Bartle retracted his helmet. Qin, Han, and Tang thought to themselves, infiltration is the right thing. The group of gods like Go E Wu Te are not good things, and it is only those who can expect them to have some normal aesthetics that have ghosts. But now the time is not right, he can only murmur in his heart. You see, why do aliens wearing armor have a lower status? With just this design, if you say they are ordinary people, I don't believe it even if you kill them. So, Bartle, it's up to you to pretend to be 13. This image, this temperament, unless you encounter an accomplice, who knows who's not afraid? Qin, Han, and Tang joked about Bader and then continued, "Previously, we found the exit of the pyramid directly in front of the Stargate. According to what was seen outside the pyramid, the long slope and 2 obelisks were also built along the front of the pyramid. So I think we should first explore towards the front of the pyramid, as there is a greater chance of finding clues." After thinking for a moment, Zhu Siming realized that regardless of whether the conclusion of Qin, Han, and Tang was based on his speculation, there was already intelligent support. Thinking about Commander Feng's words, he felt that his focus on this trip was to ensure the safety of Qin, Han, and Tang. It was better to trust him when it came to finding the coordinates of the Stargate. "Okay, let's split our troops into 2 routes. I, Batel, Xiao Song, and Xiao Qin will go search for the ruins, while the others will stay at the camp and wait for the activation of the Stargate on the base side. We probably won't be able to make it to the first activation of the Stargate at the base. You, Jin Kai, will be responsible for reporting the situation here to Commander Feng. Additionally, please also search for the situation inside the pyramid and set up a warning range with the Stargate as the center and a radius of 300 meters. Do not go too deep, and do not separate the 4 individuals during the operation." "Yes." Wang Jinkai and Sui Xiaolei replied. "Let's go for the desert motorcycle. If you need anything, please contact us via radio. After all, we trained together for 2 years, and although 3 of them were not officially active soldiers, TS.1 is already a mature militarized team. Once it enters the mission state, its mobility is not inferior to that of a fully militarized team." After installing camping and other wilderness survival equipment, Zhu Siming and his team each rode a desert motorcycle out of the pyramid and rushed into the endless desert. The Stargate base has customized a 4-wheeled sand motorcycle with front and rear seats, which has excellent speed, stability, and endurance. Under full power, after more than half an hour, the pyramid was left far behind, leaving only a faint outline. But in front of them were still endless yellow sand dunes in the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. Not to mention people, they had never seen a single blade of grass. The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties began to feel a little uneasy, thinking that there were indeed differences between the plot of the Stargate drama and the real world. Fortunately, they had not put 13 on this matter before, otherwise their faces would have been swollen. The other three don't have the troubles of Qin Hangbi. After all, based on their experience during Earth training, it's normal for them to run in the desert for 2 to 3 hours without seeing anyone. After an hour of departure, Zhu Siming ordered a stop to rest and replenish the water. After departing again, it seemed that the transportation had begun, and some vegetation appeared on the ground intermittently. After running for more than 20 minutes again, Bartle was the first to notice. He stopped and pointed to the right front. Is there any animal over there? Qin, Han, and Tang took out a telescope and immediately burst into laughter. Two four-hoofed creatures with spindle-shaped heads and long fur caught their eyes. They were the indigenous camels that almost dragged Daniel to death. They have saddles on their bodies, they are breeding animals, there must be a human community nearby. Xingmen also saw them through a telescope. Zhu Siming put down his telescope and said, "Let's keep up, don't go too fast, just hang it from a distance." Qin, Han, and Tang said to Bader, "Brother, put on your helmet." Barthel reluctantly released the extremely ugly snake-shaped helmet, feeling that after putting it on, a piece of it had fallen off, and he was still muttering softly, "What kind of aesthetic flaw is this alien?" These two indigenous camels were probably released to forage on their own, and after slowly nibbling on grass for more than 10 minutes, they finally began to look up and walk in other directions. After climbing over 4 or 5 sand dunes, a long city wall appeared before their eyes. The city wall is very rudimentary, appearing to be built with a mixture of wood and earth and stone. It appears to be 6 or 7 meters high, and the length of the side in front of them exceeds at least 200 meters. Every few tens of meters, there is a watchtower that rises above the city wall, with guards holding spears of unknown materials on it. Zhu Siming held up his telescope and said, "There are indeed indigenous people, but it seems that technology is not very advanced." Tang Xian of the Qin and Han dynasties thought to himself, "Where is this? When you cross the Stargate more times in the future, you will find that as long as the planets ruled by the Lord Go Wuta are basically bird-like. In order for the slaves to honestly excavate the Nakuta or for them without having the ability to resist, not only will they not be given any opportunities to develop technology for these ants in their eyes, but they will also take various measures to limit the population size of the slaves. Parasitic clan is a group of ground beetle whose brains have been burned by the resurrection sarcophagus. The Qin, Han and Tang dynasties sneered to themselves. Zhu Siming turned to Qin, Han, and Tang and said, "Do you have any intelligence on these indigenous residents?" Qin, Han, and Tang blinked and looked at him speechlessly. "Are you not even pretending now? I know everything I want to eat, right?" "Okay, he really knows a little bit, but it's not very useful. Language barrier is a hard nut to crack, but fortunately there are cheating devices. Just go straight up and wait under the city wall. Barthel, hold on to your momentum. Just pose and don't talk. Now that you're the boss, we're all followers. Just leave this small matter to us for communication." I couldn't see Barthel's expression, but he still straightened his waist and sat more upright on the sand motorcycle, apparently deeply understanding the intentions of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. As the desert motorcycle continued to approach the city wall, the guards also discovered the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. However, there were only 4 of them, and although the mounts were a bit strange, they didn't seem to pose a threat, so these guards didn't do anything else except stare at them. Bader led the way with a snake-headed armor, followed by Qin, Han, Tang, Zhu Siming, and Xingmen in a row, and soon drove the sand motorcycle under the gate of the city wall. I don't know if it was due to Apophis's lewdness or Barthel's overly stylish appearance. After the guards saw Barthel's appearance clearly, they became panicked. Finally, a bolder guy woke up and blew the horn hanging around his neck, and the deep sound of the horn was instantly transmitted. They didn't wait for too long, and in less than 5 minutes, the city gate suddenly opened. An old man wearing a Earth-like-a-style headscarf led a large group of people out, and judging by his appearance, he should be the leader of this tribe. Beta remembered the advice of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties and sat in the car without moving or making a sound. The chieftain, holding a wooden scepter in his hand, quickly walked to the front of the butler carriage, knelt on both knees, and lowered the scepter. He shouted something out of his mouth, then knocked his head down, and the people behind him followed suit and all fell to the ground. This posture completely overwhelmed Bartle, who was born in Xinhua and raised under the red flag as an outstanding modern youth. He had never seen such a scene before. Don't say that Qin, Han, and Tang had warned him not to speak before. Even if he hadn't said so, he wouldn't dare to say a word now. Fortunately, Qin, Han, and Tang, who were well aware of the tricks involved, calmly got off the car and walked up to the clan chief to help him up. The clan chief had a clear look of fear in his eyes, and after being helped up, he spoke loudly to the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. He didn't understand a single word. But as intelligent beings, language is not the only way of communication. During the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, he first pointed to Beta and said 2 words, Gafa. Then pointing to the sky, another syllable popped out, Ra. Finally, with fingertips as the top, I placed my hands in a triangular position and then circled the 4 of them with my fingers. The tribal chief probably understood now, his fearful expression faded, and he changed to a respectful expression. He muttered something and then bent down to extend his right hand towards the city wall. Why not say it's all intelligent life originating from Earth? Although I can't understand what he's saying, this posture is also considered international. No, now it can be considered interstellar. During the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, the chief of the royal family bowed slightly and nodded to signal, then turned around and gestured to his companions in an OK position. Done, drive the car in. Song Minyan's eyes were filled with a look of confidence. The lazy Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties may often make people angry in other aspects, but when it comes to ghost talk, they never disappoint. Zhu Siming's face remained expressionless, indicating that he had already anticipated this. Barthel's already extremely embarrassed emotions were also calmed by the provocative actions of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. Amidst the awe and curiosity in their eyes, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties entered this seemingly rudimentary fortress without any fear or danger. After parking the sand motorcycle under a cool shed, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were taken by the clan chief to a room of about 100 square meters in the center of the city to see the layout and decorations inside. This should be the meeting place for the indigenous residents. A long table with a row of chairs without backrests next to it. Fortunately, it seems that there is no need to sit directly on the ground. After each person took their seats, the clan leader began to chatter again, but unfortunately they were all playing the piano to the cow. Just now, I was just introducing my identity outside the city, and the difficulty of communication was relatively low. However, it's not easy to make 2 gestures to understand what Qin, Han, and Tang wanted to ask about the ruins. However, Hongbi was naturally prepared in advance. Qin, Han, and Tang put down their backpack and found several blueprints from inside, on which he copied ancient Egyptian murals. Then there was a good comparison, but unfortunately the difficulty was too high. Both sides were always talking on the same page, and apart from knowing the old man's name was Calum based on his pronunciation, there was no gain at all. However, it left the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties feeling frustrated and unable to reason. After all these twists and turns, the sky gradually darkened. It was time for the bonfire dinner, and the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, who had failed to communicate, could only temporarily give up. After all, the world is vast and food is the greatest. Calum and his team went down to prepare for the dinner, and TS.1 team finally found time to rest and exchange information. What were you talking about outside the door just now? Why did they let us in all of a sudden? Xingmen was extremely curious about this. At this moment, there was no need for Qin, Han, and Tang to conceal it, and they also conducted another extraterrestrial literacy campaign. GAFA is a collective term for the identities of the two extraterrestrial beings in Antarctica, who are an elite unit of an alien race called the Gaurwhite. Qin, Han, and Tang looked around and confirmed that there was no one around before lowering their voice and saying, "As for Ra, he is one of the most powerful lords in the Go-Wuda race and also the ruler of this planet. But he doesn't stay here permanently, he only visits this planet every decade or several decades, mainly collecting minerals collected by indigenous residents. The ore they mine is the material used to manufacture the Stargate, the Nakuda ore. So all the indigenous inhabitants of this planet have only one job, which is to mine the Nakuda mine for Ra. Ra has another name, the sun god Ra, who ruled over the ancient Egyptians of Earth 8,000 to 10,000 years ago. Later, for some unknown reason, this foolish bird was overthrown by the ancient Egyptians. The ancient Egyptians then blocked the revolving Stargate icon with giant stones, making it impossible for the sun god Ra to access the Earth's Stargate. In the end, they buried the Stargate underground to prevent it from being accidentally discovered and causing the sun god Ra to descend on Earth again, until it was dug up again by Lanford. The sun god, the bird man, is likely to have suffered a great loss on Earth, so he has been strictly controlling the technological development and even population size of the indigenous residents in his territory to avoid the same scene on Earth from happening again on other planets. The sun god Ra also rules other planets in the Milky Way, so he doesn't come here every time he collects minerals. Most of the time, he sends some Gava over. Those elite troops called GAFA are the ones who hold the power of life and death for indigenous residents. So now you know why the indigenous people became so nervous when they saw Bartle, right? Sleeping slot. How did you know such detailed alien intelligence? This is too detailed. You wouldn't have been sent as an undercover agent to that sun god, right? Zhu Siming, who had always been calm, finally couldn't help but curse this time. At this moment, Xingmen's eyes were burning with anger. What kind of sun god is this? It's too cruel. No, he ruled over ancient Egypt 10,000 years ago. Why is he still alive now? Although Bartle still adheres to his silent persona, the rapidly flashing red eyes on his helmet indicate that his heart is not calm now. Chapter 5. Chicken and Duck Talks. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Before the explosive ingredients exploded, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties had already planned to throw away the pot, which was because there was a big pot that could throw anything into it, so he was able to release himself so freely. So what, you understand the confidentiality regulations, mainly because I didn't originally intend to say these things at this time. I thought that once I found the local indigenous people, I could quickly inquire about the location of the ruins, and then run away to find the coordinates of Earth's Stargate. Who knew it would be so difficult to communicate? Based on the current progress, I estimate that I will be staying here for a while longer. I'm afraid I'll have to go through the motions. Although we don't have to worry about revealing our true feelings due to language barriers, our behavior habits are definitely very different from those of the original Gava. Therefore, we can only communicate with you for now to avoid suspicion. The sun god Lana Bird Man likes to pretend to be a god and play tricks the most. On Earth, he impersonated some sun god in front of the ancient Egyptians, and I even took oral liquid. But it has to be admitted that the effects of that set of lies are often astonishing. It is currently unknown to what extent these indigenous residents have been brainwashed by the sun god. If there are fanatics among them, the safety issue is one aspect, mainly because they are afraid of not being able to locate the ruins. If we really rely on these few guns to wander aimlessly in the desert, we probably won't see the ruins until we die of old age. Zhu Siming's previous loss of composure was due to the intense revelations from the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. He quickly realized that it was not time to delve deeper into the matter. It's getting dark now, and whether it's returning to the campsite or searching outside the city, it's not safe. We can only stay here for one night and make plans tomorrow. I'll go get the radio and contact the campsite. When we have dinner later, share your few pieces of paper with me and Xiao Song. Let's also find someone to compare and give it a try. After Zhu Siming finished speaking, he asked Song Minyan to get up and go to the sandy motorcycle to get equipment to contact the campsite, leaving Qin, Han, Tang, and Batel to continue pretending to be big shots in the same place. Not long after, Calum came back to invite them to a dinner party. When he went out, he happened to meet Zhu Siming and the others, and with a calm gaze, they set off together to prepare for dinner. At this point, an open space in the city fortress was already surrounded by people, with 3 bonfires burning in the middle, but except for the occasional crackling of firewood, it was incredibly quiet. Above this clearing floated a flag with a painting of huge eyes and interlocking lines. After Calum and the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties took their seats, the whole scene instantly became noisy. Qin, Han, and Tang each placed a pile of suspiciously shaped and colored food and drinks in front of each other, and a few people looked at each other. No one dared to touch these unidentified things. If it were on Earth, it would be fine. Even if it were to go to primitive tribes in Africa, as the subjects of the great foodie empire, even if the food looked strange, they wouldn't dare to eat anything. But now it's in extraterrestrial space. Although these indigenous people look no different from Earthlings, as for food, we can only thank them for the time being. Even for those with plot references like Qin, Han, and Tang, we dare not personally test the waters. Fortunately, they were not unprepared either. Zhu Siming and Song Minyan just specially brought a bag of supplies from the desert motorcycle. Upon opening, there were several square plastic boxes with the words "Military Field Self-Heating Package" prominently written on them. There is no doubt that this obvious advancement of nearly 20 years was created under the influence of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. As a seasoned otaku who traveled more than 30 years ago and enjoyed a convenient and fast lifestyle, it was really difficult for the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties to fully adapt to many of these lifestyles. As a liberal arts man, he cannot handle technical tasks such as mobile phones and the internet, but with the support of the Stargate base, which is a solid pillar, he can at least use his mouth to deceive the military into producing self-produced rice as a weapon for marching and fighting in advance. The newly developed product cannot be equipped in large quantities, but it is not difficult to supply 2 or 3 kittens for field work at the Stargate base. Speaking of which, his least trusted part of the Stargate storyline is the food aspect. As a Chinese, he is confident that he can discover a large amount of delicious food in the extraterrestrial world. But when he first arrived on a brand new planet, he felt that it was better not to compete with the indigenous people for food before small animals without Earth tried it. After all, it was safer to bring their own rations. In Calum's surprised gaze, Qin and Han Tang picked a box of potato and beef combos and skillfully opened the packaging. First, pour out the pre-made rice and pure water, stir well, and then spread the potatoes and beef on top. Finally, tearing open the heating and water packs at the bottom of the bowl, quickly putting the lunch box on top and covering it with a lid, completed a small act of coercion in front of the indigenous people. Looking at Calum, who still had a bewildered expression on his face, he didn't know if he was pretending or not, but he inexplicably felt like he was showing off in front of aliens. Song Minyan looked at his gloomy expression during the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, but she didn't know what he was thinking. She shook her head silently and said, "What's there to pretend about here? They don't know what it is. If Bartle hadn't misled them, they might be treating you like a fool, right?" Qin and Han Tang chuckled and said, "It's because of the pressure of Bartel's equipment that this is called decoration. Wait, I'll prepare meals for our Lord Gava first." After speaking, he flipped over a fish-flavored shredded pork rice and respectfully placed it in front of Bartle. Now Calum seemed to have something on his mind. In his opinion, the envoy who came this time should have some strange hobbies. He didn't dare to continue paying attention to their eating, but instead signaled to his tribe that they should eat and drink. After the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties finished their meal, Calum asked the two tribes to come to them with a few pieces of ore, and then they chattered away. Looking at what was clearly Nakuda ore in front of him, Qin, Han, and Tang dared not make blind gestures anymore. This was an item directly related to Apophis, and if they made a mistake in their gestures, they wouldn't be able to retrieve it. After thinking for a moment, Tang's eyes lit up during the Qin and Han dynasties. He stood up and picked up a piece of Nakuda ore, walking towards Bader. First, he pretended to bow down to pay his respects, then he met the ore in front of Butler and said to him, "Old Ba, it's time to test your acting skills. Just shake your head after I finish speaking, and then extend a hand to me." After finishing speaking, Batel looked at him eagerly, but was momentarily stunned. He quickly reacted, shook his head, and then extended his right hand forward. The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties showed a nervous expression on their faces. They quickly put down the ore and turned to their bag to take out the few ancient Egyptian mural patterns they had previously gestured with Calum for half a day. Exaggeratedly holding up a few torn papers, he walked back to Bartle and respectfully placed them in his hand, whispering, "Flip these few pieces of paper in your hand a few times, then shout, 'Arih' loudly and harshly." Although Bartle didn't know what the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were up to, he didn't hesitate to do it. As Batel's angry roar came out, the indigenous residents led by Calum all knelt down in fear and unease. Qin, Han, and Tang immediately retrieved the paper from Bader's hand upon seeing this, and then turned around to help Calum up. After struggling to figure with him for a while, he finally calmed him down and took the few mural drawings into his hands. This time, Calum was not sure if he was scared or if his soul was blessed, but he realized that the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were looking for something on the blueprint. So he called out the tribe and handed them the drawings for circulation, while also saying a lot of words. Qin, Han, and Tang finally breathed a sigh of relief upon seeing this situation. They sat back in their seats and said to Zhu Siming and the others, "This time we should have understood our purpose. It seems that the names of Gafa and the Sun God are still useful." Zhu Siming gave him a thumbs up, while Song Minyan gave him a white glance and said, "It seems that deceiving people has always been your strength." Qin, Han, and Tang spread their hands and said helplessly, "I was also forced. The language barrier is really tough. What can I do without being deceived?" After waiting for more than half an hour, Calum walked over with two young men and a woman. The boy looks only 12 or 13 years old, less than 1.5 meters tall, with a small braid. The little one was clearly asked by Calum to maintain a respectful posture to meet these big shots, with his head slightly lowered, but he occasionally secretly looked up and stole a glance, most of the time stealing a glance at Bartle. The contrast between the lively gaze and the pretending serious expression made Song Minyan purse her lips and chuckle lightly. The little girl on the other side is slightly more mature, probably 15 or 16 years old, slightly taller than the boy, with a beautiful face and a gray headscarf. She didn't secretly scrutinize the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, because she looked at them in a grand manner, and her brown eyes were full of curiosity. The two of them should look like a pair of siblings, and their social status within the ethnic group should not be too low based on their attire. Calum led one by one to the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, and first bowed to the four of them. Then he pointed to the boy and said, "Squirrel." Then he pointed to the girl and said, "Sorry." Then he pointed to himself and made a virtual hug. Qin, Han, and Tang, who were familiar with the plot, immediately realized that these two were probably Calum's two children. Looking at the siblings in front of him, Qin, Han, and Tang sighed inwardly. In the Stargate series, these two are also considered unlucky. They were both captured by Apophis, and when Sari was captured, she was even pregnant with Daniel's child. In the end, Squaro became the host of Apophis, and Sari became the host of Apophis's mistress. If it weren't for the special identities of the children of Sari and Daniel, the outcome of this big family would have been truly tragic, but even so, the fate of these two siblings would have been tragic. But now that the kingdom of Angsa has lost the Stargate and Daniel, it seems that there will never be a chance to come to Abidos Ho-Ho and them again. Only Apophis, a bird-like figure, is a bit haunted, but the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties coveted his body. They coveted his wealth for a long time. Let's see if there's a chance to change the fate of the two siblings. Calum probably introduced his children and then pushed them to the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. Qin, Han, and Tang noticed that they were holding a few mural drawings in their hands, so they showed a kind expression on their faces and called for the two to come and sit down. After the two of them sat down, Qin, Han, and Tang did not immediately mention the blueprint. Instead, they took out a handful of big white rabbit milk candy from their bag and handed it to them. The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties couldn't stand the soldiers of the Angsa kingdom always tempting extraterrestrial children with chocolate. How could our foodie empire be as poor as them? He had the Stargate base purchase a batch of Chinese specialty snacks early on, preparing to use a richer variety of delicacies to justify the name of the Earth. Big white rabbit milk candy is one of the main products. It was listed as the first hard currency in the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. Other products include spicy sticks, stinky tofu, dried fish, etc. They are not afraid of the alien children's sharp mouth. There is always a sweet, sour, smelly and hot one for them. Squaro and Sari looked at the big white rabbit milk candy at a loss. Qin, Han, and Tang slapped their heads and forgot the crucial step of making a sample. He picked up a big white rabbit milk candy, opened the sugar paper, threw the candy into his mouth, and then raised his chin to signal them to give it a try together. Under the temptation of the big bad wolf, the two children obediently peeled a big white rabbit milk candy and put it in their mouths. Then their eyes widened instantly and a surprised expression appeared on their faces. It seems that the effect of big white rabbit milk candy is good. The Qin, Han and Tang dynasties decided to try stinky tofu next time. It should be a bigger surprise. Let the two little ones put away the remaining big white rabbits, and then Qin, Han, and Tang pointed to those few blueprints. Sari was clearly the one in charge of the conversation between the siblings. She placed the blueprint on the table and chattered incessantly. Of course, Qin, Han, and Tang couldn't understand what she was saying, but that didn't prevent him from nodding while listening with a smile on his face. If it weren't for Zhu Siming and his team knowing the details of this guy, they would have thought he knew everything. When Sari stopped, Tang Lianmeng from the Qin and Han dynasties took a guess, and with the help of the plot from his past life, it was speculated that the two siblings should have secretly visited the ruins by this time. So he called Calum, who was standing next to him, and he first pointed to the four people on his side and drew a circle. Then he pointed to the two siblings, and finally picked up the blueprint and extended 2 fingers to make a walking motion. After gesturing a few times, Calum probably understood his meaning. He turned his head and said a few words to his two siblings, and they kept nodding before he gestured to Qin, Han, and Tang. Although I don't know his exact meaning, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties speculate that the place is still a bit far away, so I can only take them there tomorrow. Anyway, they're not in such a hurry, and even those with some brains can't do things like driving night in the alien desert. So the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties didn't care if the other party understood him as they did. Anyway, they happily talked to Calum and reached a consensus, shouldn't they? When the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties explained his understanding to Zhu Siming and the others, these few were truly convinced, and Song Minyan's expression was even more complex as she said. Where do you come from? With just a random gesture, you know they will take us to that ruins tomorrow. So why did you come to the Stargate base? I feel like going to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the right choice, right? Qin, Han, and Tang were taken aback and said, damn it. How did you know my parents' plans before? But isn't what I'm doing now just as a diplomat? It's just that my communication partner has changed from a foreigner to an alien, and the difference is not significant. Song Minyan instantly became EMO, if she knew the word. Zhu Siming actually believes that regardless of the actual outcome of the communication between the two sides, at least the atmosphere is harmonious, so that they can rest assured when they set up camp here at night. As for the outcome, we will know tomorrow anyway. The dinner lasted for about 2 hours, and then they were taken to rest. I don't know if it was because there was no divine eye ornament from Daniel, or because there was a woman named Song Minyan among them. During the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, they were not arranged to spend the night with extraterrestrial sisters. This somewhat disappointed the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, who had prepared many rejection lines. Chapter 6. Surprise and Surprise. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. With the added status of Gaffa played by Batel, the 4 members of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were rightfully placed in the best rooms of the city to rest. Originally, Zhu Siming considered that they were new to a new planet and wanted to find a larger room to squeeze in. But Cheng Yejia Fa, Defeat Yejia Fa, Kalem didn't hesitate to arrange a room for each of them. In order to avoid unnecessary complications and language barriers in communication, they had to accept it. However, fortunately, the 4 rooms were not far apart, and having walkie-talkies was not a problem. After waiting for the rejection of the alien little sister to be fruitless, Qin, Han, and Tang slept with some regret until dawn, only to be awakened by a sound of horns. After rejecting the heartfelt breakfast invitation from Kalem, the 4 people of Qin, Han, and Tang solved the breakfast problem with their military rations, and then came to Kalem again to discuss the ruins. It seems that the debauchery of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties yesterday really played a role, and Kalem quickly brought his 2 children over. After some gestures, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties confirmed that Sari and Sakuruo would take them to a place, and whether it was the relic they had hoped for could only be determined by fate. Before departure, Zhu Siming contacted the camp again, and Wang Jinkai said that the Stargate base activated the wormhole on time last night and contacted them. Commander Feng was silent for a while after knowing that they had indeed arrived at Abidos and met the indigenous people, before listening to Wang Jinkai and the others give separate reports. Zhu Siming told them that they had already learned about the whereabouts of the suspected ruins through indigenous residents and were about to set off to investigate, which also reassured Wang Jinkai and his team. When the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties arrived at the gate of the city with their desert motorcycles, they found that Kalem not only had Sari and Skaro lead the way, but also sent a team of guards riding indigenous camels to accompany them. For Kalem's thoughtful performance, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties gave him extremely high praise in terms of expression and actions, and even made Bartle pretend to pat his shoulder to show his approval. It can be seen that Comrade Kalem is very fond of this trick, so happy that his mouth is almost grinning behind his ear. Under the command of Sari and Squaruo, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties followed this group of indigenous camel cavalry towards the east of the city fortress. After driving out of the city for more than 10 minutes, Tang of the Qin and Han dynasties saw that Squaruo kept turning back and curiously staring at their desert motorcycle. Unable to bear to see his discomfort, he waved and called him over. The communication was very smooth this time. After a few gestures from the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, Squaruo excitedly jumped off the indigenous camel and sat on his back seat. Song Minyan saw Sherry's eyes full of envy, so she simply called her onto her own desert motorcycle. Amidst the resounding cheers, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties unexpectedly had an unexpected joy. Because the 2 little guides sat on their desert motorcycles, the speed of the 4-wheeled industrial products was obviously not comparable to that of indigenous 4-hoofed creatures, and their travel speed was significantly improved. The only problem was that the guards riding indigenous camels couldn't keep up with their speed and were left far behind. However, there may still be people in that group of guards who know the destination, but they said a few words to Sari when they overtook, and then ignored them. They continued to maintain their speed and fell far behind the sand motorcycle. The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties estimated that this was also because in the desert, the wheel marks of desert motorcycles were too obvious. Even if the guards did not know where their destination was, as long as they were not blind, they could always keep up. After speeding up, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties only drove for less than 40 minutes, and Sakuruo patted the car body to signal for them to stop near a sand dune. Before these two siblings could get off the car, Zhu Siming saw the difference between this place and the ordinary sand dunes. At the bottom of the sand dune, a piece of earth-yellow stone brick is faintly exposed, buried beneath the yellow sand and not very noticeable. After jumping out of the car, Sakuruo let out a strange cry and ran towards the sand dune with just a touch. When he crossed the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, he didn't forget to wave at him, apparently asking him to follow. Sari also jumped down from behind Song Minyan at this moment. She was much more stable than her younger brother. The first thing she did after getting off the car was to bow to Song Minyan and say something, seemingly thanking her for allowing her to take the sand motorcycle. Although Song Minyan didn't know what she was saying, she had a good impression of the girl, so she smiled and reached out to pat her shoulder as a gesture of closeness. At this point, Skaro had already reached the bottom of the sand dune to the right, and upon closer observation, it would be noticed that it was slightly higher than the surrounding sand dunes. He knelt down on the ground, his hands vigorously scraping there. At this moment, Qin, Han, Tang, and others who walked behind him saw a square stone slab about 80 centimeters wide appearing in front of him. Seeing that Sakuruo seemed to want to move the slate, Zhu Siming and Qin Han Tang quickly stepped forward to help. With the joint efforts of the three, the slate was easily removed, and a row of stone steps appeared below the cover. Found it. Sakuruo, well done. Seeing the obvious appearance of a relic, the coordinates of the Stargate returning to Earth are likely to be below. Qin, Han, and Tang were so excited that their voices trembled. The other three also showed excitement and instinctively breathed a sigh of relief. After all, no one wanted to spend a lifetime on this desolate planet. Zhu Siming stopped Sakuruo, who was about to run down, and looked around. He didn't dare to let everyone go down at once. He, the captain, and the intelligence leader of Qin, Han, and Tang will definitely go down, and Bartle, who embodies the power of Gava, cannot stay outside as a guard. Zhu Siming, who had few choices, quickly made an arrangement and said, Xiao Song, you take Sari to guard on top and wait for those guards to arrive before coming down. Yes. Although she also wanted to investigate further, at such times, Song Minyan must obey orders. During the Qin, Han, Tang, and Sharui made a gesture, asking her and Song Minyan to stay on the ground and wait for other members of the tribe. Now that she had some experience in communicating with Qin, Han, and Tang at this level, she quickly understood her meaning. Seeing Sari obediently standing next to Song Minyan, Zhu Siming gestured for Sakuruo to lead the way towards the underground ruins. Sakuruo held a torch and walked at the front, while Bartle held a strong light in his left hand and a scepter weapon in his right hand to cut off the rear. Zhu Siming and Tang Pei of the Qin and Han dynasties walked in the middle wearing helmets with tactical flashlights turned on. The steps were steep and deep, and they took about 50 or 60 steps to reach the bottom. Qin, Han, and Tang looked around in the light and found that this was an open hall, with a height of at least 89 meters. The area was even larger than the Stargate secret room in the Stargate base, and it was not less than 2,000 square meters visually. Seeing this scene, Qin, Han, and Tang felt a thump in their hearts and secretly said that they were broken. If there is no deviation between the storyline of the Stargate and the real world, the mural with the coordinates of the Earthball Stargate and the story of the ancient Egyptians resisting Apophis should be in a small and dilapidated ruins. The place they are currently in clearly has nothing to do with being small and dilapidated. Qin, Han, and Tang thought to themselves, indeed, the plot directly related to wisdom and life should be treated with caution, otherwise it will be tricked if one is not careful. Don't be stunned, quickly put on the lights to find clues. Zhu Siming took out the bright lights from his backpack and placed them one by one at an angle. A few minutes later, the underground hall was already brightly lit, and it seemed that there were no other partitions except for a dozen large pillars to support it. The entire hall was almost visible at a glance. The entire hall is roughly a square, with huge white stones laid on the ground. The walls and ceiling on all sides should have been painted with some special paint, appearing golden and full of grandeur under the illumination of the lights. A tall snake-headed creature statue stands every 5 or 6 meters by the wall, and the walls between the statues are neatly carved with a large number of patterns and similar words. Qin, Han, and Tang approached and saw a large number of familiar patterns, which immediately made his heart beat violently. Damn it! This is really crooked and effortless. Zhu Siming and Bartle immediately approached him when they heard his excited voice. How about it? Did you find the coordinates of the Earth Stargate? Zhu Siming quickly asked when he saw the excited expression of Qin, Han, and Tang. Unexpectedly, Qin, Han, and Tang shook their heads and said, "No, there's no coordinate here for the Earth Stargate, it's not the relic we were looking for before." So why are you so excited? You're still here shouting and screaming, I thought I found it. Qin, Han, and Tang grabbed Zhu Siming's arm and shook it vigorously twice. This is even more useful than finding the coordinates of the Earth Stargate. What kind of bicycle do you need now that you have an airplane? Zhu Siming held him down with his backhand and said, "Please calm down. I don't know what your kid has been training with us for 2 years. That's not important, do you know what these wall carvings are?" Qin, Han, and Tang pointed to the wall, shaking his hand like a school cafeteria serving groceries. Zhu Siming looked at the surrounding walls, and the golden color was a bit dazzling. The content depicted on the wall seems to be similar, all arranged vertically as long rectangular boxes. Each box is depicted with a series of patterns and symbol combinations. Zhu Siming carefully identified and found some familiar things mixed in these patterns and symbols. He quickly realized that those were the coordinate patterns on the Stargate. Zhu Siming turned around in place. If a pattern in a box represents a Stargate coordinate, there may not be as many as tens of thousands of densely packed walls and ceilings. How can you confirm that there is no Earth Stargate inside if all of these are coordinates of the Stargate? Zhu Siming immediately realized the significance of these coordinates for the Stargate base, but at this moment, he was more concerned about the practical issues at hand. Qin, Han, and Tang pouted and said, "Do you look familiar with these snake-headed statues? Do they look like Barthel's helmet? This place should have been built by the Sun God Law. Do you think he will still carve the coordinates of the Earth Gate here after suffering a big loss on Earth? And even if the coordinates of the Earth Star Gate are really inside, there must be tens of thousands of coordinates here, right? We'll try it out one by one until the monkey years come." Batel hummed through his helmet and said, "So what's so exciting about you? Aren't we still unable to go back?" Qin, Han, and Tang shook their fingers and said, "Firstly, finding this relic containing a large number of Stargate coordinates was originally one of our long-term missions on the Abidos star. We didn't expect to complete the mission the next day by chance. Secondly, even if we cannot find the coordinates of the Earth Stargate, as long as we dial any of these coordinates with an appropriate environment, it can be used as a transfer station between Earth and Abidos star for personnel and material transportation, albeit slightly more time-consuming and laborious. Can you just say that you found a treasure?" Zhu Siming and Bartle also realized this, and the big stone in their hearts finally fell, instantly feeling relaxed. At this moment, footsteps could be heard from the steps. They turned around and saw that it was Song Minyan holding Sari's hand and walking down. The guards arrived, sorry, asked them to watch from above, and then we came down, Xingmen explained. She quickly noticed the relaxed and happy expressions on the faces of Qin, Han, Tang, and others, and was also pleased in her heart. Look at your happy appearance, it seems that you have gained something. Is this finding the coordinates of the Earth Stargate? Xingmen told her about the situation, and Xingmen naturally felt happy. After all, no one wants to encounter things like being stranded on a wild planet. But Qin, Han, and Tang seemed to suddenly think of something bad, and their brows slowly furrowed. Xingmen noticed the change in expression of Qin, Han, and Tang, and reached out to pat his shoulder. What are you thinking? Is there a problem with the coordinates of these stargates? Qin, Han, and Tang looked at her in surprise and said, Are you so divine? You've seen it all. What's the problem? Xingmen and Bartle looked over at the words Qin, Han, and Tang scratched their heads awkwardly and said, So what? We were just too happy and forgot something. We might be too happy now. How do you say it? Xingmen asked. If nothing unexpected happens, we may still need to continue searching for the relic with the coordinates of the Earth's gate, otherwise we'll probably have to eat sand on Abidos for a few more months. Qin, Han, and Tang suddenly poured a basin of cold water out. Why? ×3, this involves some astrophysical theories. You should have heard of the Big Bang Theory, right? As a result, Xingmen and the other three shook their heads together. It was only then that Qin, Han, and Tang realized that it was not 10 or 20 years later, and the internet could not be said to be underdeveloped, but could only be said to be completely non-existent. At this time, people's way of obtaining information is still very traditional. Apart from actively seeking knowledge related to their studies and work, most people do not have many channels or interests to learn knowledge unrelated to their work and life, let alone those relatively advanced and impractical physics knowledge. Unlike the Qin, Han and Tang dynasties, when science fiction, film and television dramas were popular and mobile internet was highly developed, people at that time, whether interested or not, would actively or passively learn from various channels some cutting-edge scientific theories that had nothing to do with daily work and life. Faced with teammates with cognitive differences, Qin, Han, and Tang missed Dr. Xiaoqing at the campsite immensely. Unfortunately, he couldn't quench his thirst from afar. Now, he can only provide a rough explanation from the perspective of non-professionals. Chapter 7. Successful Achievements. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin, Han, and Tang pointed to the golden walls around them and said, We now know that the positioning of the Stargate is based on the combination of star maps of the Milky Way. In addition to the seventh star map representing its own coordinates, each Stargate also needs to use 6 star map coordinates to locate the position of the target Stargate in 3-dimensional space. In theory, these star map coordinates have uniqueness, which can be used as a positioning ruler on a vast cosmic scale. Unfortunately, even if it is as vast as the universe, it cannot withstand the erosion of time. The only thing in the universe that will not change is the change itself. At this point, we cannot ignore the theory of the Big Bang. Simply put, the Big Bang theory suggests that our universe originated from a point with infinite density but infinitely small volume, which is called a singularity. Singularity occurred approximately 13.7 billion years ago in a way that we still cannot fully understand, giving birth to the universe we inhabit. Based on this theory, our universe has been in a state of rapid expansion since the Big Bang, as confirmed by astronomers' observations of galaxy redshift. As for what is the phenomenon of galaxy redshift, I can't explain it for a while. You can ask Dr. Xia when the time comes. Simply put, it proves through some spectral change that all galaxies in the universe are moving away from each other at an extremely fast speed. Originally, these physical theories and astronomical phenomena were not directly related to us, but for the Stargate system, that's not the case. The star map used as coordinates will inevitably change over time due to the expanding distance between galaxies, leading to the failure of the original gate coordinates. The time when the ancient people first built the Stargate system is estimated to be at least 10 million years ago, and their technology can naturally periodically correct the impact of galaxy redshifts on the stargates. It is not even ruled out that they have set up an automatic correction program in the Stargate system, so that the coordinates of the Stargate cannot be invalidated due to the phenomenon of galaxy redshift within a certain time or range. But the ancient people have been disappearing in the Milky Way for at least 2 million years. Even if the ancient people had actually set up automatic correction programs in the Stargate system, it is unlikely that their programs would still be fully effective in a time scale of millions of years. So although we have these gate coordinates, it is highly likely that astronomers or physicists need to correct them with Doppler displacement before they can be used normally. The problem is that based on the confidentiality level of the Stargate base, I estimate that the time required to complete this work will be at least in months, without violating the confidentiality regulations. Not to mention finding a planet that is suitable in all aspects among so many gate coordinates to serve as a transit station. After all, millions of years are enough to change many things, such as the deterioration of the natural environment on the planet where the Stargate is located. So, if we want to return to Earth as soon as possible, continuing to search for the correct relic is the optimal solution. After the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties finished outputting with a crackling sound, Zhu Siming and the three of them were completely numb. Looking at him, their gaze clearly began to be off. They were shocked to discover that they had traveled through the Stargate to an outer planet, but after all, they were used to hearing various speculations about the destination of the Stargate at the Stargate base before, and the option of an outer planet was definitely not the most outrageous one. Later, Qin, Han, Tang, and Lu continued to tell some intelligence about the Stargate and extraterrestrial civilization. They basically believed that there must be more than just Stargate and extraterrestrial corpses excavated from the ruins of Antarctica, but only intelligence analysts like Qin, Han, and Tang knew about it due to confidentiality reasons. But just now, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties exposed some extraterrestrial civilization information that is often measured in time units of millions or even millions of years. Based on their understanding of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, it is not difficult to guess from his resolute tone that he must also know some more outrageous intelligence. Regardless of their personality, there is no ordinary person in terms of intelligence who can be selected for TS.1. The series of performances in the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties made them instinctively start thinking about what is hidden behind the Stargate plan. They are now curious about how many undisclosed and shocking secrets were discovered that led the government and military to launch the Stargate program 3 years ago. Unfortunately, both as a soldier and in the current environment, it is not the time to ask these questions. However, the matter itself is not easy to inquire about, but the person who leaked the information can still bully. Song Minyan blinked a pair of bright big eyes and said to Qin, Han, and Tang. "Little sugar brother, are you possessed by ghosts? You are a lazy person who even tries to cheat and play tricks during training. Why do you know so much about this obscure physics knowledge?" Qin Han Tang's face turned black and he said, "Please don't associate with me. I'm not your cousin, and I'm just lazy. I passed all the training programs." Song Minyan chuckled and said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You, a little brother in your 20s who still likes to eat big white rabbit milk candy, is it wrong to call you little sugar brother?" "That's because I have low blood sugar. No need to explain, sister is a doctor. How could she mock you just because of this? Could you please put away the smile on your face and say this sentence again?" Zhu Siming interrupted the two guys who were pinching their heads with a black line and said, "Stop, stop. Is it time to argue now? Xiao Song, don't be led astray by this guy. As for you, are you sure about what you just said?" The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties generally tended to directly refer to the plot of previous life dramas for matters related to the laws of the universe. The probability of making a mistake is very low. We will try it out with the base later. Zhu Siming stared at the wall engraved with the coordinates of the Stargate and thought for a moment, then said to the 3 staff members. Anyway, these things are crucial for the Stargate base. Go to the car immediately to get the filming equipment and capture all the content. Over the next hour, the 4 people of Qin, Han, and Tang took pictures of the entire ruins with cameras, not daring to drop an inch of a corner. During the filming, Qin, Han, and Tang suddenly realized that they had overlooked a detail before. In the first movie of the Stargate, it was discovered that the relic at the coordinates of the Earthball Stargate should not be too far from the Indigenous fortress. After all, the protagonist and Sari walked there at that time, and today they both drove their sand motorcycles for almost an hour. So this is the relic that appeared in the first episode of the subsequent TV series SG-1, and the protagonist only discovered it after living in Abidos for a few months. After realizing this, the Qin, Han, and Tang horses grabbed Sari and gestured. When he tried to draw a constellation icon representing the Earth on the ground, Sari finally had a reaction to the pattern of a bottomless triangle topped by a small circle. She stretched out her slender little hand and drew lines on each side of the triangle that seemed to be small figures, then said a few ambiguous words to him. Although Qin, Han, and Tang didn't understand what she meant, he knew it was settled this time. After sharing their speculation with Zhu Siming and the others, everyone's emotions instantly rose, especially Song Minyan, who had already felt that Sari was very close to her, and now they became even closer to her. Although this trip to the ruins did not achieve the original goal, it achieved excellent unexpected gains. Zhu Siming and his team didn't think much about it yet, but the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were planning to spend several months searching for this relic, and they didn't expect to finish it the next day. So after the Qin, Han, and Tang groups finished filming, they rushed back to the city fortress without stopping. Taking advantage of the early time, they casually took a bite of lunch and took Sari and Sequaro to another ruins. This time, because it was very close to the fortress, Calum only sent 2 guards to accompany. At the signal of Sari, Qin, Han, and Tang drove their desert motorcycles out of the city and headed north. After only a dozen or so minutes, they were stopped by Sari. It can be seen that this place was a human settlement a long time ago. After being abandoned, it was slowly eroded by wind and sand, leaving only a few isolated walls on the surface. Leave the 2 indigenous guards outside to guard, while the others walked towards the northwest corner of this abandoned settlement under the leadership of Sari. Walking to a wall that seemed to be crumbling, Sari squatted down and used her hands to sweep away the floating sand on the ground. A stone slab with a handle was exposed. Song Minyan stopped Sari, who was preparing to open the cover by herself. Zhu Siming and Qin, Han, and Tang consciously stepped forward to open it, and a small hole appeared in front of them. Zhu Siming looked at the size of the cave entrance and looked up at Bartle, saying, "It seems that you can't get down, Bartle. You happen to be guarding on top. This wall doesn't look very secure. If the wall falls, you can still help us out outside." Bartle looked at the hole that was not much thicker than his thigh and deeply felt the malice of this planet. Without letting Sari take the lead, Zhu Siming took the torch that had just been lit by Sequaro, lit up his flashlight and stuffed it into his hand. He then walked down the hole with a cat on his waist. Song Minyan and 2 children walked in the middle, while Qin, Han, and Tang were responsible for cutting off the rear. After passing through a narrow passage, the space gradually widened a bit, at least allowing them to straighten up, but still unable to accommodate 2 people walking side by side. At this point, they can see some stone carvings appearing on the walls on both sides. Although the lines are simple and the patterns are abstract, in the eyes of people like Qin, Han, and Tang who have studied the language and history of ancient North Africa for several years, they can still see to some extent the narrative contained in them. Unfortunately, just 3 or 4 years is not enough time to cultivate an expert in this field. Coupled with someone's lazy nature, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties can only be considered half-baked and completely unable to provide useful interpretations. Fortunately, he is not here for archaeology this time. Finding the address of the Stargate is the only goal. In no time, they arrived at a fork in the road. Zhu Siming stopped and turned to look at Sari, gesturing for her to come and show the way. Sari must have been here more than once. She didn't hesitate and took the opportunity of the spacious intersection to take a quick 2 steps around Zhu Siming, leading the way to the right. The others could only follow behind when they saw the situation. After walking for 2 or 3 minutes, the front suddenly became clear and they arrived at a room of about 30 square meters. After being cut off, Qin, Han, and Tang squeezed in and saw something similar to an altar in front of the wall facing the passage in the room. He walked up to take a look and couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. The big stone in his heart finally landed. There was originally a stone tablet in the middle of the altar, with some patterns carved on both sides that should also be recording something, including a star map representing the coordinates of the Earth. But none of these attracted the attention of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties with the row of patterns engraved in the middle of the stone tablet. For those familiar with the Stargate, they could tell at a glance that it was a set of Stargate coordinates. Before the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties entered, Zhu Siming and Song Minyan had already seen the stone tablet and recognized the Stargate coordinates engraved on it. However, after counting, they found only 6 patterns, and the area where the 7th icon should have been engraved had fallen off. At this moment, seeing the changes in the expressions of Qin, Han, and Tang, Zhu Siming knew that this should be the coordinates of the Earth Stargate they were looking for. So he asked with concern. It seems that this should be the coordinate we're looking for, but we're missing the last one. The coordinates are incomplete. Qin, Han, and Tang replied with a smile, that's right, this should be the coordinates of the Earth Stargate. It doesn't matter if you miss one. Anyway, there are only 38 icons on the Stargate. If you subtract these 6, you can try it out at most 32 times. And I know what the 7th icon is, so we have obtained the coordinates we need to return to Earth. Song Minyan exclaimed in surprise, how do you know what the 7th icon is? Is it an undisclosed source of intelligence? Qin, Han, and Tang Xian thought to themselves, of course, the real reason cannot be said. Can I tell you that the 7th icon was seen in a TV drama? However, this did not affect him to pretend, that's not it. Have you noticed the icon on the Apophis gate? One of them is the icon with 3 small circles surrounding a triangle, which represents the 7th icon on the Abidos star map. Why? Do you remember the icon representing the Earth? There is a small circle on top of a triangle. Just a friendly reminder, the Earth only has one moon, which is a satellite, but Abidos has 3 satellites. Song Minyan suddenly realized, but her gaze towards Qin, Han, and Tang was somewhat puzzled. When did your observational ability become so keen? Did you already know some of the coordinates of the Earth Stargate? Are you just here to pretend to us now? Believe it or not. Qin, Han, and Tang didn't expect to be hit by Song Minyan's words, so they immediately changed the topic. Hurry up and get down to business. Take photos of the coordinates and withdraw them. It's still early now. After sending Sari and Sequaruo back to the city fortress, there's still time to return to the camp before dark. After all, business matters. 3 times, 5 times, 2 times, the coordinates of the Stargate were captured. The group began to return on their original path. After the incident, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties used their military knives to clean all the coordinates of the Stargate on the stone tablet, and then walked out calmly. After returning to the ground, Zhu Siming told Barthel that the task was completed, and then led the crowd straight to the castle, safely escorting the helpful Sari and Squaro back to Kalem's side. Chapter 8. Return. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After returning to the city fortress, the Qin, Han, Tang, and Kalem had a heated exchange of comparisons and guesses, and Kalem should have known that they were about to leave. It is estimated that Calum had never dealt with such a kind Lord Gaffa and his followers before, and the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties could vaguely see a hint of reluctance in his expression. Before leaving, Calum commanded his tribe to move out a large amount of Nakuta ore. Judging from that posture, this should be a fixed process every time Gava came over. Of course, during the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, they could not take their belongings, even if they were on a foreign planet. The military discipline of the Chinese army must still be strictly followed. However, after seeing them refuse, Calum's expression clearly became anxious and uneasy. Zhu Siming and Qin, Han, and Tang were afraid of causing any unnecessary misunderstandings, and considering that there was probably a demand for Nakuta ore in the base, they had to casually take 4 pieces of ore of no size. However, Zhu Siming still tried his best to follow the discipline of fair buying and selling, and gave all the remaining rations and snacks from the 4 of them to Sari and Squirrel. He also left a few lighters, flashlights, and telescopes as payment for the purchase of the ore. However, for an Earth without Nakuta ore, the value of these minerals is estimated to be not too low, whether in terms of practicality or scientific research. Even if the situation is special, Zhu Siming may have to write a few more pages of a report after returning. After taking a few group photos with the Calum family at the gate of the fortress, both sides bid farewell with reluctance. Qin, Han, and Tang, who were eager to return, raced their sand motorcycles to the maximum speed limit and headed straight towards the pyramid camp. About 2 hours later, the TS.1 team finally merged smoothly. Zhu Siming and others didn't even have time to discuss the wonderful itinerary of the day with the remaining Wang Jinkai and others, so they took out the coordinates of the Stargate captured in the ruins and began dialing. After entering the coordinates of 7 Stargates in the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, they pressed the hemispherical button in the middle of the dial console with slightly trembling hands. The Stargate finally activated the wormhole as expected, and upon seeing this, Zhu Siming immediately began sending 2 consecutive communication requests using the detector previously transmitted from Earth. Base 116, this is TS.1. Please answer if you hear me. Base 116, this is TS.1. Please answer if you hear me. Although the Qin and Han dynasties Tang Xin swore that the Stargate coordinates were okay, not only Zhu Siming other people had doubts, but also he was a little guilty. He was afraid that the real world would deviate from the plot of the previous life, leading to the Stargate coordinates being killed by the plot. 8 people and 16 eyes were all staring tightly at the detector in front of the Stargate, as if there were some rare treasures hidden inside. Several people have never felt that time passes so slowly, and the timer on the detector seems to be directly connected to their hearts, feeling that the heartbeat frequency has seriously exceeded the limit. Fortunately, they did not endure too much agony. Less than 10 seconds after Zhu Siming's communication request was sent, the familiar voice of Commander Feng came from the detector. TS.1, this is Base 116. We have received your communication request, please continue. Qin, Han, Tang, and others couldn't help but cheer, but Zhu Siming remained calm and raised his hand to signal them to remain quiet before sending out another communication message. Base 116. I am TS.1 Captain Zhu Siming. We have successfully completed our first exploration mission with no casualties. The surrounding environment is safe now. Please return to the base. If you hear this, please answer. Commander Feng's reply quickly came through, TS.1, the base has opened its security shield. Please return immediately. The call is over. Zhu Siming immediately ordered to cross the Stargate and return to Earth, put on your equipment and pass through the Stargate immediately. Before returning to the camp, Zhu Siming had already informed Wang Jinkai and others who were left behind to tidy up their equipment. They had already packed the supplies that needed to be brought back to Earth. At this moment, with a command, everyone rushed directly into the Stargate. When Qin, Han, and Tang appeared again in the Stargate chamber of Earth base, they once again felt the chill that could keep people's minds clear. Zhu Siming was the last one to walk out of the Stargate, and then a sound of metal friction came from the Stargate. When everyone looked back, they saw a metal barrier quickly moving out from both sides of the Stargate, completely isolating the wormhole view. It goes without saying that this baffle was installed as a Stargate shield at the suggestion of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. At first, he wanted to replicate the Stargate shield style from the Xi'an mountain base, which was to install a movable titanium alloy shield between the wormhole view and the Stargate icon ring. But discovering that the plot is the plot and reality is reality, with the current level of technology and understanding of the Stargate, not to mention that such a form of installation is completely impractical, it can only be said that one is thinking nonsense. Although the science fiction plot cannot be copied, the idea can still be borrowed. The 116 base version of the Stargate shield is composed of movable titanium alloy baffles installed on both sides of the Stargate. The baffle has a small arc inward, and after the two baffles are closed, the distance between them and the wormhole horizon is less than 1 mm. Due to integrity limitations when material is transported through wormholes, the transported material must be reassembled as a whole at the other end of the Stargate to be considered successfully transported, otherwise it will be consumed by the wormhole. There is only a distance of less than 1 mm left between the shield and the wormhole horizon, and the vast majority of the transmitted material, whether it is physical matter or energy weapon attacks, cannot be recombined. The only result is to be directly blocked back into the wormhole and mercilessly devoured by it. With this titanium alloy shield, unauthorized Stargate teleportation activities and attacks on Stargate bases can be physically isolated. Of course, if you encounter superpowers like the Nox, it's another matter. After they came out of the Stargate in the Qin, Han and Tang dynasties, the metal platform on which they stood immediately sprayed a large amount of disinfection mist, enveloping them and completing the preliminary disinfection and sterilization. Then the group, along with their equipment, were taken to the isolation room next to the Stargate chamber for further testing. After all, it was their first time returning from a strange planet, and no one could be too careful. After struggling for almost an hour, the 8 people of TS.1 finally walked out of the isolation room and were then directly led to the Stargate control room. The control room is located above the Stargate chamber, separated by a thick movable explosion-proof steel plate. Behind the steel plate is a huge bulletproof glass curtain wall, from which you can overlook the entire Stargate chamber. The dial control console of the Stargate is also installed behind the glass curtain wall. This is also a conference room, with a long conference table in the room. At this time, TS.1 is sitting on both sides, and at the main seat of the conference table is General Feng Guohui, the commander of the Stargate base. He also has another identity, the Deputy Chief of General Staff of the Chinese military. Unlike the plot where the commander of the Stargate program at the Xia Anshan base in Lion Sa Kingdom is only a major general, the Hua Kingdom, due to the presence of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, understands the importance of the Stargate and has arranged the highest configuration for it since the decision to approve the project. The frontline commander and base commander of the Stargate program directly appointed the highest level military commander, so this seemingly ordinary 116 base can mobilize almost all resources of China. The gate of Abidos is located at the bottom of a pyramid, inside. That planet has 3 moons. We have discovered an indigenous tribe, with an estimated population of no more than 10,000 people based on the size of the settlement. Its appearance is no different from that of the Earth, with black hair and brown eyes being the majority. The natural environment doesn't feel any difference from the Earth. Bring back 4 Nakuda ores that are suspected of manufacturing the Stargate. 2 ancient relics have been discovered, one of which has a missing coordinates of the Earth's spherical gate. A large number of Stargate coordinates have been discovered in another relic. The above is the general situation of this task. I will compile a detailed task report as soon as possible. The report is completed. Zhu Siming spent nearly an hour conducting a task briefing, during which Commander Feng rarely raised any questions, only occasionally making notes in his notebook. Great, have anyone else added anything else? Commander Feng saw everyone shaking their heads together and said, all right, let's get here today. You guys go back and rest well. These past 2 days have been tough. Please submit your written task reports before 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. In addition, this mission is still in a strictly confidential stage. You are not allowed to mention the task content to anyone outside of you until you receive a clear order. The meeting is over. Yes. X8. Everyone stood up and prepared to leave. Commander Feng said to Qin, Han, and Tang, Xiao Qin, come with me to the office. Qin, Han, and Tang followed Commander Feng into a room next to the Stargate control room, which was Commander Feng's office at the Stargate base. The two of them sat down across their desks, and Commander Feng looked at Qin, Han, and Tang with a smile on his face. Xiao Qin, it seems that you have many secrets hidden inside you. Just now, after listening to Xingmen's report, I realized that you still have so many details about extraterrestrial civilization. The Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties were so embarrassed that they scratched their heads and didn't know how to make a smooth transition. They just had a heart-wrenching, smashed their jars, and pretended to be dead without making a sound. It turns out that when he wrote the script about how the Earth was destroyed by aliens and led to his own passage, he was only focused on how to attract the attention of the higher-ups, in order to quickly dig out the Stargate in Antarctica and how to kill the Stargate plan in the country of Angsa. Therefore, when he wrote the script, he mainly emphasized a sense of urgency and couldn't immerse himself in endless scrutiny of details. Therefore, previously he only mentioned that the Stargate plan of the Kingdom of Ansa was plagued by a lack of intelligence and various constraints, resulting in constant manipulation and losing the opportunity to fight against extraterrestrial civilizations, ultimately leading to the tragic destruction of Earth. And he only learned about some declassified information after the Stargate program in the country of Angsa was forced to be made public, so he had been providing macro-level and relatively easily verifiable intelligence before. The benefits of doing so are obvious. Most of the information provided by oneself can be verified on Earth, which is greatly beneficial for accelerating the advancement of the Stargate program. On the other hand, I benefit from continuously verified intelligence and save a lot of detailed investigations. However, this flawed script clearly cannot fully convince any political figure, but the decision-making level of China has maintained consistent flexibility and tolerance, and has not delved into those doubts of all sizes despite receiving continuous positive feedback. The first official Stargate mission of TS.1 made it impossible for all insiders to continue to sit idly by, as the various details constantly revealed by the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties almost explicitly told the experts that I would not hide them. During the first routine contact after TS.1 crossed the Stargate, Commander Feng realized the problem from the reports of Wang Jinkai and others. He immediately contacted the decision-making team and informed them of the situation in Qin, Han, and Tang. Today, Zhu Ximeng's mission briefing further confirmed their previous speculations, so Commander Feng's solo interview can be said to be imperative. Commander Feng looked at Qin, Han, and Tang, who were pretending to be dead and deceiving, and was immediately angry and laughed. You'll know that you're pretending to be dead. Aren't you quite able to release yourself when you're in extraterrestrial space? Alright, don't play with me here. Perhaps you have also realized that no matter how much we have been tinkering on Earth before, the Stargate project has not yet entered the substantive stage. But when we really set foot on extraterrestrial planets and came into contact with extraterrestrial civilizations, things fundamentally changed. Regardless of whether what you said before was true or false, it doesn't really matter anymore because we believe your original intention was to protect the Earth from extraterrestrial civilization invasion. Now let's skip those irrelevant speculations and focus our energy on how to minimize the pitfalls of the Ansa Nation Stargate plan. From the first mission of TS.1, it can be foreseen that the Stargate program will receive greater support, and the frequency and scale of Stargate traversal will gradually increase. Correspondingly, the probability of encountering various unforeseeable dangers will rapidly increase, and it is likely to pose a direct security threat to the Earth as a result. So, now I solemnly ask you, is there any important intelligence that needs to be reminded of us? Qin, Han, and Tang were almost cried by Commander Feng's words. He knew that this meant that although the decision-making level of Hua had various doubts about the things he had previously fabricated, at least he still believed that he was trustworthy. Anyway, he had already made a choice in Abidos, and since Commander Feng had already talked about it, there was naturally nothing to hide. Apart from the fact that the Stargate series cannot be disclosed, it is indeed necessary to reveal everything else. After all, he won't be able to participate in all the Star Trek missions in the future. It can be foreseen that the exploration team will continue to expand, and soon TS.2, TS.3 will appear until TS.N. If other teams make misjudgments due to insufficient intelligence, they may not only face danger themselves, but also bring new enemies to the Earth, and may even lose important allies. In a sense, the latter is more unacceptable than the former. The determined Qin, Han, and Tang raised their heads, looked directly into Commander Feng's eyes, and said solemnly, "I've figured it out. There is indeed a lot of important information to be provided, but have the leaders decided who to let know?" Commander Feng's finger flicked the table and said, "Oh. How do you say that?" Chapter 9. Unexpected Visitors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin, Han, and Tang looked at Commander Feng without any hesitation in their eyes. "I'm sorry that I kept some things hidden from you, but there were some of them that I would never mention to anyone, including my parents," they said. "No matter what the leaders think of the post-apocalyptic crossing that I mentioned before, one thing I can guarantee is that it is not unfounded about the invasion of the Stargate and extraterrestrial civilizations. At this stage of the Stargate program, especially when I was certain that I had truly set foot on the land of a foreign planet, I truly realized that without basic intelligence on extraterrestrial civilizations, we would face many extremely dangerous people and things, and may also waste many opportunities. So I plan to organize the main extraterrestrial civilization information and potential major events that I know, so that the exploration team won't be misled when encountering events on extraterrestrial planets, and the leaders can also prepare contingency plans for certain things in advance. However, there is also a problem with this. Unlike what I mentioned before, the new intelligence covers a wider range and it is difficult to limit insiders to an extremely limited range like now. The most direct example is TS.1. When they cross the Stargate to carry out extraterrestrial exploration missions, they have to face all unknown dangers and opportunities. If they have relevant intelligence but are not aware of it, then not only this exploration team will suffer losses, but it may be the entire Stargate program, and even the entire Earth civilization. But on the other hand, if the scope of these intelligence spreads too widely, it may be too early for countries like the country of Anza to learn about, and the consequences are also difficult to predict. After all, we still find it difficult to bear the losses caused by direct confrontation, right? Unless we have already gained an absolute strategic advantage through the Stargate program, such as having our own spacecraft. But this is clearly not something that can be achieved overnight, so, Commander, this is my problem. I know too well what the consequences of losing control of the Stargate program will be, and I have changed too much. Many things are completely heading in a different direction. This is also the reason why I have been hesitant. I don't know how to make the right choice, but since that's already the point, I think it's better to leave the problem to the leaders to worry about, or it's more suitable for me to just focus on killing and burying. After listening to Qin, Han, and Tang's words, Commander Feng smiled with satisfaction and said, "It's a good thing that you can consider so much. It shows that you're not the kind of person who ignores everything when your mind is hot. That's great. I originally wanted to talk to you about the big deal, but now it seems completely unnecessary. Alright, it won't affect your rest. Go back and organize the mission report and intelligence materials. The leader should have a result on the Stargate plan soon." After Qin, Han, and Tang came out of the office, they felt unprecedentedly relaxed. Indeed, they were not the ones who could handle secrets. Those boring troubles should be left to others to worry about. Isn't it fragrant for them to simply cross the Stargate and go on a trip to the outer world? The treatment of TS.1 at Xingmen base should be the best, with at least one single room per person. Therefore, when Qin, Han, and Tang returned to the dormitory, there was no one to disturb them. He had been in a tense and excited state in Abidos, and when he relaxed, his mental exhaustion could no longer be suppressed, so he fell asleep. In the next few days, he will either be writing Abidos's mission report or organizing the plot information in his memory, filtering out important intelligence for subsequent reporting. After submitting their respective task reports, the other members of TS.1 tacitly did not have much private communication about the task content. Although Commander Feng only asked them not to mention the task content to anyone outside the team that day, no one was foolish. The various behaviors of Qin, Han, and Tang in Abidos, as well as Commander Feng's performance at the task briefing meeting, made them realize that it was best to abide by the confidentiality regulations at this time and not make any unnecessary mistakes. On the fifth day after returning from the planet Abidos, the atmosphere at the Stargate base suddenly became tense, and the security level was also raised. All cross-floor activities were subject to certain restrictions. All members of TS.1 who received the meeting notice returned to the Stargate control room in this solemn atmosphere. At this time, there were no other people in the meeting room, and they were the first batch to arrive. Surprisingly, their name signs were placed on the long conference table, and their positions were at the end of the table. The arrangement was the same as before, with Zhu Siming, Bader, Wang Jinkai, and Sui Xiaolei sitting on the side facing the entrance. Qin, Han, Tang, Song Minyan, Xia Yiqing, and Zhou Shangyan sat opposite them, facing the Stargate chamber. Seeing this posture, they didn't even know that there must be other leaders attending today's meeting, so they sat down by name in a proper manner. After sitting down, everyone looked at Qin, Han, and Tang, and could see that only he could possibly know some insider information. Although he didn't ask, his eyes were very clear. Qin, Han, and Tang, who knew what was going on, shrugged and said, "Don't think about it, it won't be any bad thing anyway." He is not just fooling, it is because he knows the content of the meeting that he knows TS.1's participation in the meeting indicates that extraterrestrial exploration operations will soon resume, and TS.1 will still be the only choice to carry out the mission. At this moment, a man and a woman walked in from the door. The man was about 50 years old, of medium height, wearing a black suit, short hair, square face, and a pair of black-framed glasses. His expression looked slightly serious but still friendly, with a strong aura of government officials on his body. In addition, the lady has a slender figure and is wearing a dark green suit. Her long hair is draped over her shoulders, and her temperament is gentle and elegant. She has a light makeup on her face and looks like she is in her 40s. Facing the entrance, Zhu Siming and others saw someone coming in. Although they didn't know each other, their age and aura were clearly different from ordinary people, so they politely stood up and saluted. The four officials from the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties quickly stood up and looked back. Song Minyan also bowed, while Xia Yiqing and Zhou Shangyan nodded in greeting. At this moment, Qin, Han, and Tang were greatly surprised, their eyes wide open, and they blurted out, "Dad, Mom. Why are you here?" The other members of TS.1 were also greatly surprised at this moment, and did not expect to see the family recognition scene at the Stargate base. The two parents who came in were Qin, Han, and Tang, Qin Chuan and Tang Li. They were originally working at the Chinese embassy in a Middle Eastern country, but since the discovery of Xingmen, they have been transferred back to the capital and held other positions in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The two of them first nodded to the others, and Tang Li smiled and said, "Hello everyone, it's nice to see you all here. Thank you for taking care of Tang Tang in the past 2 years." Qin Han Tang rolled his eyes and said, "Mom. I told you not to call me by my nickname anymore. How can you talk to your mother? Your skin is itchy, isn't it? Your mother has been calling you this way for more than 20 years. Even if you're 80 years old and she wants to call you this way, you have to comply. Qin Chuan snorted coldly. Qin, Han, and Tang were so embarrassed that they could even dig out another Stargate chamber with their toes. They quickly skipped the topic and introduced themselves to their parents and TS.1 teammates, followed by a good conversation. Song Minyan secretly smiled at Qin, Han, and Tang in a low voice and said, "Sugar candy. This sounds much better than little sugar brother." Qin, Han, and Tang rolled their eyes and pretended not to hear anything, but asked their parents again, "Why did you come to the base? What else can we do? Director Qin and Director Tang are certainly here for the meeting, why? I thought you didn't perform well, so I called out to parents." Before they could answer, Commander Feng's voice rang out in the control room. Before Qin, Han, and Tang could answer, two more people walked in behind Commander Feng, the kind they often see on television. Zhu Siming and 5 other soldiers instinctively stood at attention and saluted, shouting excitedly, "Hello, Chief." "Okay. Okay. Hello, comrades." As the two leaders sat down, the atmosphere in the Stargate control room immediately became serious. The chief official sat at the main seat of the conference table, while another chief and Commander Feng sat at the top of Zhu Siming's seat. Qin Chuan and Tang Li and his wife sat next to Qin, Han, and Tang. Commander Feng still presided over the meeting, first introducing the TS.1 team members to the two leaders, and then formally introducing Qin Chuan and Tang Li, and announcing their intentions. The first Stargate Traverse mission was successfully completed, not only confirming the authenticity of the Stargate's connection to extraterrestrial planets, but also discovering extraterrestrial civilizations. With the continuous advancement of the Stargate program, it is foreseeable that we will land on more planets and come into contact with more extraterrestrial civilizations. As a part of the military, conducting interstellar exploration at Xingmen base is our job, but the separation of military and government is the basic political ecology of our country. So after completing preliminary exploration missions on a new planet, if we have a need to continue communicating with local civilizations, then this part of the work will be handled by other departments. Therefore, after central research, it has been decided to establish the Department of Extraterrestrial Civilizations of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which is responsible for the exchange of affairs with extraterrestrial civilizations. Due to confidentiality reasons, the Extraterrestrial Civilization Department is temporarily only under the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in terms of staffing, but its actual operation is carried out within the framework of the Stargate base, directly led by the Central Authority, and the work of the Extraterrestrial Civilization Department is directly reported to the Central Authority. The Central Committee has appointed Director Qin Chuan of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as the first director of the Department of Extraterrestrial Civilizations, fully responsible for the affairs of the department. Appoint Director Tang Li as the temporary representative stationed at Abidos Star, responsible for the exchange affairs with the native civilization of Abidos Star. When Qin, Han, and Tang heard this, they couldn't believe their ears. It seemed like they were about to crack open, and from now on, they would have to work under their parents' noses every day. Thinking about it, they felt the future was bleak. Now let Director Qin say a few words. Commander Feng handed over the power of speech to Qin Chuan after reading out the appointment. Qin Chuan smiled and said, "Thank you for Commander Feng's introduction. The Department of Extraterrestrial Civilization is still in its early stages, and in the short term, it only has us 2 staff members. Therefore, many things still require the support of Commander Feng and the Stargate base. Especially for TS.1 team, you are the frontline personnel facing extraterrestrial civilization directly. Almost all first-hand information will come from you, and we will need your strong cooperation in the future. I have a small request here, which is that I just took a look at the mission report of the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties. In it, the indigenous civilization of Abidos is mostly expressed in terms of indigenous residents and indigenous civilization, which has some disrespectful connotations. I hope to use neutral terms such as indigenous civilization and indigenous people as much as possible in the future. Okay, I understand. Qin, Han, and Tang responded dejectedly, unable to help but lament. The fear of being dominated by their parents when they were young once again surged in his heart, and now he even had the urge to apply for transfer from the Stargate base. Most members of TS.1 were also beating drums at this moment. Although Qin Chuan was referring to the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, except for Song Minyan and Xiaoyiqing, everyone else used the same words. It is estimated that Qin Chuan is not good at directly mentioning them, so let's first make an example of his son. But the team members of TS.1 also felt dark and happy, because Qin, Han, and Tang, who were lazy and tiresome, were not less angry with them. This time, it can be considered that Sun Wukong had met the Buddha. Commander Feng continued Qin Chuan's words with a smile and said, "Have you heard me? When you have time, please ask Director Qin and Director Tang for advice." At this time, the Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties felt that the Stargate base was no longer a good place, and running away overnight with buckets seemed to be a good choice. The other people present could no longer feel the feelings of Qin, Han, and Tang. On the contrary, they all felt inexplicable joy, so only Qin, Han, and Tang, who were injured, achieved the world. Seeing that the atmosphere was no longer as reserved as before, Commander Feng continued, "Let's talk about the return to the Stargate plan next. The advancement of the Stargate project inevitably involves dealing with extraterrestrial civilizations, and the diversity of civilizations in the universe is inevitably greater than on Earth. What we know now are several completely different extraterrestrial civilizations, including the ancient humans who created Stargates with advanced technology, the Gawut tribe who enslaved the people, and the Abidos indigenous people who were enslaved. Previously, due to the lack of direct evidence to confirm certain matters related to the Stargate, some information was kept confidential. However, these issues no longer exist. Therefore, before conducting the next interstellar exploration mission, it is necessary to integrate all information related to the Stargate and extraterrestrial civilizations to provide intelligence support for the advancement of the Stargate program. TS.1 is the only exploration team in the near future, and mastering detailed intelligence is an important guarantee for you to safely complete exploration tasks. The Department of Extraterrestrial Civilizations needs to communicate with different extraterrestrial civilizations, and accurate characteristics of extraterrestrial civilizations are a prerequisite for communication with them. The Central Authority requires detailed intelligence for long-term strategic planning. As one of the core founders of the Stargate plan, Qin, Han, and Tang dynasties, today he will give us a systematic introduction to relevant knowledge. After Xiaoqin reports, any questions can be exchanged. The content of today's meeting is confidential information, and all information must not be disclosed without written authorization from the Central Authority. Alright, Xiaoqin, you can start now. Qin, Han, and Tang gathered up the sadness and anger of wanting to work with their parents and began his literacy course on the history of the major races and civilizations in the Milky Way. Although he only had half the information he had obtained from previous life dramas, the accuracy was questionable, but it was better than knowing nothing and blindly blurring his head.